bell when you're ready, please.
Yes, and welcome everybody to this meeting of the Cold Lake Township Board of Education for May 29th, 2024. Mr. Cameron.
Present.
Mrs. Denoya.
Here.
Mrs. Dillon.
Here.
Mrs. Dimes,
Here.
who is remote. Thank you. Mr. Orico.
Here.
Mrs. Ramirez,
Here.
acknowledged remote as well. Mr. Rugnetta.
Here.
Mrs. Volpe.
Here.
Mr. Walsh.
Here.
You have a quorum.
Thank you, everyone. Just will mention that proper legal notice was put in the Asbury Park Press regarding this meeting. And now I'll ask everyone to please stand for a flag salute. Whoops. Yeah, go ahead. Flag's in the back. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. As you'll see, it's a very, very, very long agenda tonight. That's because while in January, we call it the reorganizational meeting, when we start off a new year, new board members, if there are any, this is more akin to a reorganization for the new school year. So there's a lot of, the first whole half of this agenda is a lot of like appointments to statutory positions that we regularly do, as well as authorizing contracts with people that we do on an annual basis. So I don't want to skip anybody from asking any questions on anything, so please follow along if you haven't already. But for these first 12 pages or so, I'm going to just touch on all of the items, and then we're going to do one vote rather than taking half an hour or more to do this. So if you guys are ready, good. And board members, of course, same thing. I'm talking to the public, but any questions or concerns, that's fine. It's just that so much of it is routine. So the first one would be adoption of our official newspapers. That's the Asbury Park Press. Second would be approval of parliamentary procedures. That's Robert's Rules of Orders. Then there's a bunch of several administrative appointments. There's the appointment of our health insurance broker and agent. That's Brown & Brown. There's the appointment of our property and casualty insurance broker. That's Alliant Insurance Services. There's the appointment of disability insurance providers. That's MGM Benefits Prudential Insurance Company and Colonial Life as the providers. There's the appointment of the acting board secretary. That's Mary Jane. She gets to use that when we need her. Appointment of treasurer of school monies. That's John Antonides. At a salary of $3,400 a year. The appointment of representatives requesting federal and state funds, that's Dr. Garibay and Vince, and they do a very good job, and I couldn't ask for anybody better to keep asking for more funds for us, so thank you. Appointment of district qualified purchasing agent, that's Vince. That's a notable position to have because often in public service that I've seen, people have to have a separate QPA, and Vince, being a qualified purchasing agent, saves us a lot of money and does a good job. It allows him to get quotes for things all the way up to $44,000 instead of having to go out to bid at, I don't know what your threshold is, but at a much lower amount, $17,000 or so.
Well, it's 44 is the bid threshold.
Oh, even if without a QPA?
Without it, it's 22.
Yeah, that's what I said, much less, so half of that if we did not have a QPA. Designation of claims auditor, that's also Vince. That allows him to deal with debt, payroll, fixed charges, and other things on demand, independent, instead of waiting for board action. Designation of school funds investor, also Vince, along with Kathleen Condren. Same thing, allows them to make financial moves on our behalf without waiting for a board meeting. Designation of transfer authority, that's Dr. Garibay, and I think it's delegated to Vince as well, right? So yeah, both could do that. Board of Education bank accounts, they're at PNC Bank and the New Jersey Cash Management Fund, both to be depositories for Colts Neck. We have an impressed, I'd never heard the word used like that, impressed petty cash funds authorization. It's just about $500 each for each of the schools. and Superintendent's Office, Transportation for if they need minor purchases, 10, 20 bucks, up to 100, I think, without authorization, to be able to just use petty cash rather than go through the formal process. Uniform expanded chart of accounts, not much to say about that. That's just the chart of accounts that we use for budgeting. Approval of tax sheltered annuities. There's 3 of them listed there. We have the approval of the flexible spending plan, and Horizon Blue Cross Blue Shield are the district's third-party administrator for that. We set fees for copies of public documents. They're listed as well. We have the appointment of a representative to Monmouth Ocean Educational Service Commission, and that's Mary Jane. We have authorization for employment when eminent need exists. That goes to Mary Jane as well. We have the appointment of custodian of records and public access to records officer. That is Vince. And then we have the ability to purchase under what's called EUS, Extraordinary Unspecifiable Services, specifically in this case for telecommunications, so that that could be purchased without going through the typical RFP or bidding. And in fact, this resolution does say telecommunication services with the firm of Altice Lightpath is approved. And I think that takes us to our board meeting. So if anyone has any, well, I should ask for a motion to carry all those items.
Motion. Second?
And a second, you go. Great. And now, anybody want to discuss all or any of those?
Amy has a question.
I'm sorry?
Amy had her hand up.
Oh, yeah, sorry. No, you can just keep an eye. Thank you. Yes, Amy?
Sorry, not a question. I just think it's important because I know it was a goal of yours to do RFPs for a lot of these, some of the positions that have been designated. Be helpful to, to mention the ones that we approved the RFPs for, just as, I know you wanted to look at some of them yearly. So some of these appointments were ones that we went out for RFP on.
Yeah, thank you. Vince will know both insurance brokers, the one for health insurance as well as for commercial insurance. I believe maybe the only 2 on this agenda that we went out for RFPs on. We did some at the last meeting, 1 or 2, that we'd also done. But out of all of these, I think they're the only 2, or Vince, I miss any?
Right, well, there was auditor that we had previously appointed, that was one, and then we're waiting on legal services.
Right.
To have that evaluative process.
That's what I said, but to Amy's point, on the ones that are on tonight are the 2 insurance brokers.
That
And
would-
Pomptonian is later on.
And Pomptonian.
The food services later
Comptroller.
on.
Thank you.
Yes, and finance, yes.
Perfect, thank you. All right, that being said, can we get a roll call, please?
Sure. On all the appointments and adoptions for the new school year, Mr. Cameron.
Yes.
Mrs. Denoy.
Yes.
Mrs. Dillon.
Yes.
Mrs. Dimes.
Yes.
Thank you. Mr. Orico.
Yes.
Mrs. Ramirez.
Yes.
Mr. Rugnetta.
Yes.
Mrs. Volpe.
Yes.
Mr. Walsh.
Yes.
Okay, motion carried unanimously.
Thank you very much. Could I also get a motion and a second to approve the minutes of the February 14th regular meeting, the March 13th regular meeting, and the March 19th special meeting, all, of course, of 2024? Someone like to offer that?
Motion. Second.
And a second. I have a little discussion. Dr. Garavay, Vince and I had sent something in when I reviewed the minutes, and I just wanted to put on record that Vince agreed, and they'll be changing the minutes that we have in front of us, but it was so late in the day that it needs to go on the record also, that our student liaison, Jillian DeSalvatore, is Jillian, not Jullian. You were misspelled on the minutes as Julian, so I wanted to fix that. On page 10, under the first item on curriculum, it said that it was up in the top, that it was carried on a roll call vote, but then at the bottom, as it typically does when it said the vote, it was correct and clear that it did not pass that particular motion. It was a 6-3 maybe vote, so we want to correct that. And then likewise on item number 2, which ended up on page 14, I think. That one at the bottom says the motion did not pass, and it was for staff members to do their spring curriculum writing work, and we knew that that did pass unanimously, but there was just a cut and paste issue, I think, when the minutes were put together. So with those two corrections, does anyone else have any other comments or questions about the minutes? Jillian, you want your name any different, or? All right, so with that, if we can get a roll call vote on the minutes from those three meetings, that would be great.
Yes. Mr. Cameron?
Yes.
Mrs. Denora?
Yes.
Mrs. Dillon?
Abstain from February 13th, I was not there, and yes, the other two.
Okay. Mrs. Dime?
Yes.
Mr. Arico?
Yes.
Mrs. Ramirez?
Yes to the February 14th and March 19th meetings, but I have to abstain from the March 13th meeting as I was not present.
Thank you. Mr. Rignetta?
Yes.
Mrs. Volpe?
Yes.
Mr. Wolf?
Yes.
Okay, motion carried.
Okay, now we have a more formal presentation, but for the 4 student liaisons that are here, would anyone like to speak tonight? To the board or the public? Oh. Got a wannabe back there, that's okay. We'll go right in order, and I'm sorry if I didn't see the hands in order, but Tyler, sure. Should always stand, thank you, yes.
Good afternoon. One thing I'd like to mention is the pothole when pulling into the parking lot for the elementary school. Could cause some safety issues, and it's hard to swerve around it in the morning or in the afternoon when you're trying to pick up your children or drop off your children. You can't really swerve around it. So.
Could not agree more. Don't want to take anything away from your observation, but we had noticed that. In fact, if I remember correctly, a month or 2 ago, the township came and threw some cold patch in. We were doing temporary fixes there only because it is scheduled in the summer to be completely repaved. But to Tyler's point, I drive a little tiny car, and I almost went in one of them. So if we could reach out to the DPW or the mayor, however you go through the process, I'm sure we can get them to come over and patch those up for us temporarily. And thank you for bringing it to our attention. Christos, did you have your hand up or no?
No.
Emmanuel?
Good evening, everyone. So I wanted to add something to one of my previous statements in a different meeting from a little while ago.
Sure.
When I mentioned the writing club, I also found a new talent in poetry, so I thought maybe add some poetry into the writing club and maybe have you could write your own story, but maybe you could also write some poems. That is all.
Thank you. Very nice addition. And Jillian?
So I know that Miss Rouso's taking a leave of absence. I was wondering if there would be anyone to cover for her while she's not there.
And I'm sorry, who's?
Miss Rouso.
The school counselor is press.
Yeah, I'm not sure what, the leave of absence at the end of the year? Nope, there will not be a replacement to finish out the year.
Okay,
Thanks, though. All right, I appreciate it, kids, and now we have a formal presentation. I'm sorry?
And I think comments from attending constituents.
Yeah, oh, no, I just didn't know if there was another student rep that had raised her hand.
She's not a rep.
Oh, sorry. My apologies.
Nope. That particular person is more than welcome to comment during public comment period. We would love to hear it, but
My apologies.
we can't give her any special treatment during this time. So therefore, if everybody's okay, I believe it's Allison and Brenna that will be taking us through their presentation regarding the Parent Advisory Committee meetings and current status and recommendations. Thank you.
Thank you. Needs to be given a clicker. Actually, you're clicking, right? I think I'm clicking. Okay, you're gonna click. I'm clicking. We're clicking.
Oh, and before you start, if you don't mind, can I just ask, because I believe some were, just a show of hands, are some parents here that were involved in all or any of the parent advisory committee, wow.
Good showing.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. How many did you have?
We had 35 people sign up.
Yeah.
So,
And you got 11 of them here. Guys, I want to say then to the parents, A, thank you in general for all the time you put in for this, and B, thank you for coming tonight, because we want you to hear the summary. I know you've been kept up on some of the information, but I think some of tonight, I hopefully will be new for us, and we'll take it from there. So again, thank you, involved parents.
thanks, everybody. I mean, I know I've said it a few times now, but this committee really was my favorite thing that we've done, well, that I've done. I don't want to speak for you on the board so far, but it's been so informative, and I just love connecting with all the other parents, meeting some new teachers that I hadn't met before, and it's just been a really great opportunity for us to learn from you. So thank you all. Thank you for making it possible.
And thanks for being here tonight.
Yeah.
Press it, just press it.
Okay. So we were able to form this committee because of an existing policy that we already had, which is policy 9140. I'm not going to belabor it by reading word for word, but here it is.
And this was also prompted by our previous president, who wanted to get more input from parents because of all the discussions that have gone on in the community. So we thought it would be a good idea to bring people in and hear what's going on, and for the school district to communicate what we are doing as well. So that was the impetus, if you will.
And again, as Allison just said, we really didn't have a great exchange. We kept, hearing from all of you at these board meetings. They are so formal. It's really not a back and forth opportunity during public comment. And I think that that's a general frustration for a lot of parents that come to these meetings hoping for that back and forth. So we knew that we needed to create a new forum for parents to come to be able to have an open dialogue with us. One point that one parent in the committee made that we all thought was really great was, I think that during COVID, not me personally because my kids were too little, but the virtual hybrid aspect of it made a lot of parents feel like they were a part of the class, like in the classroom with the teachers. They knew so much about what was going on and what was being taught. And when it was time to go back to in-school instruction, they kind of felt shut off and in the dark more so than before. And I think it was just kind of the culture shock that happened post-pandemic. And there was also just a bigger need for transparency after everything that everybody went through during the pandemic, and this just felt like a really good opportunity for that. We also have an ongoing strategic plan, and this committee kind of helped target community engagement within that strategic plan, so that was also a benefit. Yeah.
We're in year 2 of the 5-year strategic plan, is that correct?
Correct.
Yeah.
And for those that don't know what the strategic plan is, it is on the website, so you can look at where we're going in the next 3 years to 5 years. So Dr. Garibay sent out an email to parents, and we got an overwhelming response. We had 35 parents immediately say, I want in on this. This is a big deal, right? And so we said, okay, great. What are your areas of interest? You all submitted what was important to you, and we were able to chunk it into 2 main categories. We focused on the whole child and our school climate and parent engagement. Those are the areas that we felt we could make the biggest impact quickly in our district, right? So that's where we focused our groups. We offered meetings. Hey,
I think that's next.
so we offered meetings during the day and at night for parents. There we go. And we broke the parents up into whole child and parent engagement. And those also correlate with the strategic plan, right? So it's all about coming together. So we met a bunch of times. A lot of times we met, right? Right? We all met. We had a good time, I thought. Yeah, right? Okay, good. So, and we talked about a lot of things. And we made a lot of recommendations. And those recommendations were shared with everyone who sent in an email about being involved in this group, as well as the board throughout this process.
Yeah. So at our initial meeting, we set some norms. As we said, the goal was to come together and build recommendations to present to the board administration. But at our first meeting But we had our, Post-its up on the wall and just asked parents to come up with norms that we could all agree on. It was kind of just an open dialogue of how do you want these meetings to be run, and these were the norms that everybody came up with. It was a confidential meeting. Anything that was discussed was kept in that room. Everybody was hoping for open-mindedness, respectful of everyone's opinions and beliefs, listening to everyone, taking the time. Following through on recommendations was very important to a lot of parents, obviously. Each voice is equal. We tried not to talk over each other. And we were looking for evidence-based suggestions from everybody, not just necessarily, opinion or gut feeling. And we just asked that the communication remain open in between meetings. And I think we accomplished that. Everybody was super respectful.
Thoughts? Thoughts from the group? We good? Okay, good. So we had open-minded, respectful discussions that invited members of our subcommittees to express their opinions and views. We had expertise from our parent body,
So many different professions.
adding
that kinda
unique
came together.
perspective to all of it, which was really great. Our administrators also contributed to our discussions and clarified information and continued to ask questions to get more information from you all. We had vast experience of parents with ranges in age from end of middle school to, kindergarten, first, second grade. So we did run the spectrum of the district, which was really great. And we made a commitment to respond, verify, and research concerns in order to assist with the development of recommendations.
And a lot of the times, at the end of one of these meetings, the administrators would literally go to the schools the next day to kind of investigate on topics that came up during that previous meeting, so that they could come back to us the next meeting and share that information, and, or even email it in the interim, so that was really helpful. That was just,
Yeah,
we,
that's just
we
enough.
had
Yeah.
an open Google Doc that everybody could access with all of our information. Okay, so, we're getting to the meat of it now. We're gonna start with our whole child subcommittee recommendations. This, I'm gonna try to not read this word for word, but, there's a couple pages of them. So, we have a recommendation for the continuation and expansion of our social emotional programs. That was something literally everybody was going around just adding exclamation points to the SEL. Everybody really felt that in this day and age, it was very important to continue to advance those programs. The next one, the positive behavior supports. We had a lot of discussions about the lit tickets and the bucket fillers. I think an overarching theme you'll see in a lot of these recommendations is consistency. There are teachers in the primary school who love using the lit tickets. There are some who don't like using them. There are some that use them for different reasons. And that's all fine and well and good. We all were on the same page that they have a right to kind of use them however they'd like, but that the kids, it may be in their best interest to have some consistency on that, so that they're not always comparing, some of the quiet kids don't end up with lit tickets. So that is something that the committee wanted administrators to take a look at. There was a recommendation to increase opportunities for students to make suggestions, so kind of like a suggestion box. We have our student liaisons now for the middle school, which is awesome, but for the younger grades, there isn't, we're trying to promote the idea of them speaking up as well, because it really has been so great for the board. A recommendation to maintain appropriate use of instructional technology and digital content. The balance here was the overarching theme. We were able today, which was amazing, and we're going to talk more about it later, but Allison and I were able to go to the elementary school and sit in on a bunch of 3rd and 4th grade classes and walk by a bunch of 5th grade classes as well to kind of really see in action how those Chromebooks are being used. That was really helpful for us to have a better understanding, and we'll talk more about it later, but it really was nice to see the balance in action. But the next point, I don't know if you want me to just continue on. This was, not an easy decision for us alongside the administration to make, but we are moving forward with but we are going to eliminate Chromebooks during indoor recess next year. That was not a decision made lightly. There are benefits for a lot of kids to be able to use their Chromebooks during recess. Socially, that's a comfort for them, or the balance of technology being used in the classrooms, and this recess is an area where the screen time can be peeled back, and, it's not used during, it will continue to be used during instructional time, but this was an opportunity to make a change. Do you want to take the next one? Oh,
It's
okay,
fine.
I'll keep going.
Okay.
Let's see, we're gonna kind of, we made a recommendation to evolve the orientation for incoming transitional years like kindergarten, third, and sixth. I think that a lot of parents express that entry into third grade can be really overwhelming. And, I know Mr. Osmond already does an amazing orientation while the kids are in their new classrooms checking it out. But I think there just needs to, we've heard from parents that there needs to be more information about the Chromebook usage and all the, the changes that are going to happen between second grade and third. Let's see, dedicated spaces on the website. We're hoping to just hold some of that information on the website for parents that can't make it to the orientation. And again, consistency, standardized communication between teachers and parents. We want teachers to have autonomy to teach their classes the way that they see fit and to deal with parents the way that they see fit. However, it does make it really hard for the parents to speak to one another and feel like they're constantly comparing. And so I guess the hope is from these parents is for more of a baseline of communication.
Right, so it really, to summarize that, it's about consistency and balance,
Yeah.
right? Thank you, Dr. Beth. And so that's the goal with trying to incorporate these things. So now we're on to parent engagement. So parent engagement, we talked a lot about how to get parents more involved, and we talked about the parent academies that we started this year, which we felt were really successful. There were certain workshops that were better attended than others. We've talked about expanding the access to those, including online and live streaming, so that parents who are working and unable to attend a 10 a.m. session will be able to catch it later. So being able to do things like that so that parents have a better understanding of the district's online components, as well as other programs and things that we do. We talked about having teachers clearly communicate with parents at the start of the year regarding their their professional and appropriate expectations of communication. So as you progress in K through 8, as parents, and it's hard, your communication gets less. I remember when I got to middle school with my youngest, and the communication just fell right off, and I picked up the phone or I sent an email, and I got responses, but it wasn't, the hand-holding gets less with each transition, right? And so it's about setting those expectations properly for parents to be able to manage their own expectations, right? Recommendations for a new school climate survey that invites responses from students, staff, parents, and stakeholders. This was something that we really did consider in our parent advisory groups. We think it's important. COVID affected all of us in different ways, shapes, and forms. And it's time to kind of regroup and see where everyone is at, right? So we want to see where we're at so we can make those changes within the district if needed. Recommendation for a more robust, inclusive calendar that clearly identifies cycles, spirit days, and all the fun things. Who has trouble managing a calendar? Hey! So we want to try and make it easier for you, right? We've heard you. So that's, something that we can do to make your life easier. A parent resource hub, we talked about that a little bit. We want to do more coffee chats with you as a board. We think that that would be helpful. It's something that's less formal, and we can actually communicate with you because this is a public meeting. So you hear our discussion, but we can't discuss things with you here. That's not how this works. So, it's just, so we want to be able to have opportunities to hear from parents in a multitude of ways.
And the coffee chats, I think, are a little bit different than the advisory committee. It's not something you have to formally sign up for, and commit to for the year. It's even more informal than that. And there's always a different topic for each meeting. You are able to send in your questions questions ahead of time so that the board members and the administrators can answer those questions. So it has a different vibe to it than the parent advisory committee.
Right. We're also making a recommendation to have additional parent advisory committees next year. So if you're interested, feel free to reach out.
Keep an eye out.
Keep an eye out for us to send an email. That's probably better. Recommendations to continue to explore opportunities for field trips and assemblies, and then opportunities for parents to volunteer in the schools. So those are the types of ways that we're looking to have more parent engagement.
Well, yeah, a little bit, yeah. So, on the 26th, Allison and I met with the administrative team, which was really informative in both directions. We were able to give them this list of recommendations and kind of talk to them about what seemed feasible, what didn't, what they're going to need to think about more, put more time into. Like, for instance, the lift tickets, they were very receptive to the idea of building consistency there, but it's something that they need a little bit more time to figure out. So a lot of these recommendations are, all of them, are things that have already been in front of their desks and that they will be mulling over. But for example, the Chromebook storing indoor recess, that's something that we together have already decided will be eliminated next year. And then today,
The other thing we did was today, we spent a day over at Crest, which is right there. Sorry. All of a sudden I'm discombobulated. It's that way. We had the opportunity, thank you, Dr.
Yeah,
Garabay,
thank you
and
so
thank you,
much.
Mr. Osmond.
thank you,
And Mrs. Novotny, Ms. Butterman, our teachers here today. We had the
Show up with 3 little
opportunity
chairs and
to observe kids in reading, and then in the afternoon, we came back and watched math lessons happening in the classroom. Just to kind of get an idea of what's really going on in the classroom.
we also spoke with the science and iLab
That's right.
teachers. We were able to take a peek into all the classrooms. We walked all the halls pretty much all day long. And
We met with the literacy and math coaches.
yes,
We had a
It was a day.
it was-
and I'm not gonna lie, I said it a few times today, but my daughter goes into 3rd grade next year, and up until today, y'all made me really nervous. Like I am. I was scared. I was just like, wow, this is gonna be such a big change, and I'm not ready for it. But sitting in the classrooms today, I just know how excited my daughter will be to be there. It really was a great environment, and to be able to sit in Miss Novotny's class and actually see 8 and 9-year-olds be 8 and 9-year-olds, and it wasn't like what I had in my mind of silent students behind Chromebooks. That was not what I saw. In reading and writing, they're writing in their physical journals for a long time. They're sitting on the carpet reading a physical book, Fables, which was my favorite books as a kid, so that was nice too. And the small group instruction that we witnessed in reading and writing, and then again in math, it's worlds different from the way that I was taught as a kid, but I can't tell you how much I think personally I would have benefited from that type of instruction as a kid. I was a really shy child. I talked about that a lot today, and the idea of getting to sit with my teacher in a small group and ask questions as opposed to just being in a big classroom and having to raise my hand, I don't even know what my school career would have looked like, honestly, because it really was so nice to see these kids feel so comfortable. Their teachers knew them so well. And yes, there was a lot of time for the students to be working independently when they were not in their small groups with the teachers, but I think that I was really impressed by it because I think it fostered a lot of independence for these kids at a young age, but balanced with still a lot of fun and a lot of time to still be a little kid. And so overall, that was, again, why I felt even more confident with the indoor recess part of it, because I feel so confident about the balance that's happening in the classrooms during instructional time. So that was really my main takeaway. But we're also here for questions. If there's anything you want to ask us about what we saw today, we're happy to answer that. I think this is our last slide, right?
Yes, it is.
Yeah. They made it through.
Our administration was very open to us
Yeah.
when we met with them. They gave us a lot of time
Yeah.
during their admin meeting, and we went through all of your concerns,
Yeah.
not just the recommended.
not just these
We went
summarized
through
ones.
everything,
We had
just
the
so you
books.
know. So, and we talked about a lot of different things and how difficult things have been since COVID. And how coming back has been a challenge, and transition from teachers being in your houses with the screens versus the kids going off to school and that's it, kids, and you don't, it's been hard, and so, and everyone recognizes that. So your voices have really been heard here, and we hope that you feel confident in the recommendations that we've all put together, everyone who worked on this committee. So, and today was really a wonderful opportunity for us to see how the kids work in a lesson, how they do their work, how the work is listed in the Chromebook and their to-do list, and they're checking things off as they go, and they do a worksheet, and then they come back and check their list. Okay, I have to go back. And every kid is different. So there's a kid whose desk is a hot mess, right? Let's be, so, and he or she is still getting the work done, but they have their list and they're going through and they're doing their, and there are other kids that are very organized and keeping it, keeping their toe to the line, so to speak. So it was really just a wonderful opportunity to see them flourishing in a way that is very different from the way I grew up and learned, and it's exciting to see how they all interact in that way. It was special. It was a wonderful opportunity. So thank you.
Thank you. I guess, just if anybody has questions, anyone from the board have questions?
Sure.
Yes.
So, as far as Chromebook usage,
Yes.
Is there going to be a policy put into place? So when a parent requests the amount of Chromebook their child is on during the school day, is that information going to be available?
I don't know administratively, maybe you can speak to it, but I know that there is access to some information, but it's not necessarily the actual usage time. It's more like when they log on, when they change a website.
That's
Is that
correct.
possible?
If I can answer, you want me to answer?
John.
Yeah, John can answer that.
Of course.
So the tracking that we've been hearing, and a lot of parents shared the timestamps, what you're seeing are timestamps of when a computer is open and they're logged in. That's what you're seeing. And as witnessed, as we've seen in observations, administrative observations, as well as what board members saw today, a Chromebook is open, ready for on Google Classroom. The child walks away and is meeting with the teacher. That Chromebook is still running. So the time that's timestamped on there that shows that they've been on for 17 minutes, they were never at the screen, but the computer was open. If a parent, we've never kept information from a child regarding usage, but it is something that is specific to each Chromebook for each child's account. So if you're if you're looking at how much time they're spending on IXL, that is something you can request through the back end of our information systems. It's not, that we can do that. That's not a problem. It's not something that's right there in front of you. That's an operation of the program, not something that we're keeping from our parents. So it's not something that you can say time on task for, if that makes sense. The only thing we can do that is for individual map questions.
So when we hit Control H on the keyboard, like if parents was
And it comes up, which is control history.
Right, control history, so you can see each time and then each, I guess, link, right? So like, it could say like, 12:58 like 3 times. So I'm assuming that's each time the finger hits the keyboard.
That they
Is that right?
access that link, correct.
Right, so is that the only way to check the Chromebook history, or is there a way from your end that you could?
There's a way,
select?
that's what I'm saying, there's a way from our end that we can see in terms of time spent on a program, and that from parents who have reached out for individual, there's been large disparities in that with regards to what the total time was running on the Chromebook, and time that's seen when they're doing that, because if they're looking at it through the school day, and time spent on actual programs and engaged in programs. So that's something that we can work on a very individual level with our parents on.
And again, we saw the Chromebooks open today technically, so I'm sure at some point they hit, they logged in, they did whatever they had to do, but they're working in a physical workbook or on a worksheet that then they had to get up and go hand in the worksheet to be reviewed for the math lesson, and then they get up and they go to the teacher and sit on the carpet. Like, it wasn't a bunch of silent children sitting in front of the computers.
How many third grade classes did you go into today?
We went into two of them were still working on math testing. So we popped into 2 of the third grade classes and then 4 of the fourth grade classes.
Yes.
Yeah.
So
But we looked into every classroom.
To Dr. Garabay's point, I actually brought this up with her earlier. So I saw a child's laptop up, and it was pointed in Google Classroom to a video for a math lesson. He was not at the desk. He was at the lesson with his teacher. So they were there for 17 minutes doing the lesson. He came back to his desk, still was not looking at the computer, getting organized, doing whatever. It was 22 minutes before and I paid attention because I wanted to see, like, there's such a discrepancy between the online, like what is online versus what they're actually doing on the computers. He wasn't paying attention to it until it was time to put in his earbuds and focus on his lesson. So I witnessed, but there's 22 minutes that it was open. So you're gonna see that it was open for 22 minutes and it was like online. But that child was nowhere near his computer for 17 of it, and then it took another 5 for him to get adjusted and into the lesson to do the work. So it's not as, it's
Black and white.
it's not as black and white, not as black and white, but it's yeah, I don't,
It's hard.
so different.
We kept saying we wish that every parent could just sit in the back of the classroom and watch it, because unless you really see it, you probably, you can't make as much sense of it. I know I certainly couldn't. But again, we're here for questions, so.
I feel like part of the issue is too, though, if they didn't have access to things like Google and YouTube, it would be less concerning. Like if they only had access to academic material instead of things
During
that
the
could,
lessons, like,
well,
yeah.
anytime they have their Chromebook open. Like I work for Walgreens and I don't have access to Google, so I know that's possible.
No, I'm sure it is. I mean, I'm just saying that what we witnessed today was a bunch of kids independently doing the work that they were assigned, but I didn't see, it seemed like the classrooms were fairly under control. Maybe recess would have been a time where those types of
If
things were happening.
If I may, I think one of the recommendations back on the slide was to propose potentially a district goal and combined district and board goal that is the task force that works with
Yes.
parents, teachers, and administrators, members of the board, to say, okay, we have firewalls, so they don't have open access to Google, they don't have open access to YouTube. However, where there's a will, there's a way.
Right.
So while we have firewalls, we have protections in place for students not to be able to access things on their devices, and when they do, we can see it in terms of those types of things. That said, it's not infallible, and we've addressed those things as they've been brought to our attention throughout the school year. Because creators of content sometimes are very cognizant of the fact that districts have devices, and that students who want to access them, they'll give it creative educational title, which will allow the child to access it. And it's not until students have done a great job being vigilant about informing us of things that that they shouldn't have, as well as parents saying that. So it's not infallible, it isn't. But at the same time, we do our best to maintain our security walls, firewalls, and also alerts that pick up words or phrases, words of searches that are blocking. So they do not have full open, to your point, in Walgreens, we do not have full open access to Google. We are a Google Classroom environment. So while they can do searches, and we watched it today while they were doing research projects of different things that allowed more access to content that they were, it's still in a secured environment. They don't have free reign access to search Google at will. If that makes sense.
We do love the idea
Okay,
of this task force, which I think would be really important next year. I hope the board can get on board with that. It's a topic that obviously people care a lot about, and I think that if we had expertise from all different areas, including parents, administrators, teachers, our technology team, it would be really beneficial. So that is one thing that we forgot to mention on the slides, but yes.
I would like to also point out that you can't ban everything, because if you ban everything, so if someone's trying to do a research project and they can't go into it because it's banned, then you have to go to Mr. Cascano. Mr. Cascano, then it takes 20 minutes for him to do that. And think about the 500, 600 students that have to go. Oh, okay, now Mr. Cascano has to do this one, and then 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 this one, and this one, and then this one, and then no one gets their stuff up. So I feel like you can ban some things, but like you can't just ban everything and then it takes forever to do anything and then nothing gets done.
Good point. You should be on the task force.
To add on to what Christos is saying, I agree with him, because what if a teacher asks you to go into like a YouTube video for like math or something, and you can't go onto it because it's blocked, then how are you going to do what you need to do? Or like go onto Google because you have to do like what he said, a research project, and you can't search it up.
It's a complex issue. You are also invited to the task force.
Looks like we have student reps for that task force.
hearing everybody's voices. I want to thank the parents who were consistent coming to the meetings. But I just want to say, I'm a person of action and quick action. And since I've noticed the complaints of the parents in this district, I think we should have immediately tried to work on a policy with structure of exactly how many hours are allowed by teachers to instruct kids on Chromebooks. It has to be written out, followed by each classroom. I mean, I respect that you went in, took the time to observe the teachers, but that was only one teacher. We don't know exactly what's
We did
going
see
on.
multiple teachers.
I
but
understand, multiple teachers, let me finish, please.
Okay, sure.
I just feel that we have to have a policy with this, making more task force, talking about it. Like I said, I'm a person of action, I see a problem, we have to act on it, and I'm hoping that the board, we can maybe come up with something to, for each school, since the younger grades probably shouldn't be on the Chromebooks at all, make a policy for that school, the elementary school, and like I said, the older school, my daughter's in the Cedar Drive, and she is on the Chromebook a lot, but, I think it's a different situation for the older kids, but, all these advisory committees, they're excellent, hearing people's voice, talking, but at this point, making more task forces, I think we should make a policy and act on it immediately.
So with all due respect, I think it's just a lot more complicated than that. For example, in the reading and writing classes that we watched today, the students are writing with pencil and paper in their workbooks and their journals, they're doing this and that, but like Dr. Beck told us later in the day, if it was a publishing day where they actually had to type up their work, they could be on the computer for much longer that day because it takes longer to type it. I think there needs to be some flexibility with it, because I don't see how we can put a firm, hard stop number on the amount of technology used, because it varies so much from day to day. I don't know how you would even begin to create that number.
Well, I think, like I said, we could discuss it amongst, the board, the board members.
From my perspective, I think we do need to take some kind of action based on what we heard, but I would like to keep the presentation to just questions and answers so the board gets to hear everything. If you or any other board member would like to bring anything up during new business, that's the time we'll get into an open discussion. I don't want to turn the presentation into that, but no, thank you. I appreciate it, and I'll throw in that not only having heard from parents, but also having read recommendations from whether it's called the National Pediatric Association or some of these people, it is clear cut. Young kids should not be having too much screen time. I think we need to, at a minimum, restrict it severely for our primary school kids, and based on what the Pediatric Association cares about.
We honestly didn't even look into the primary school. I have not heard that as a concern.
Okay, but continue the comments, please, but as far as the board discussing to possibly give any direction, we'll save that for new business after the presentation. Thanks, and sorry.
No, that's okay. I just wanted to clarify, was the recommendation for no Chromebooks during indoor recess only for elementary school?
Well, they don't use them in the primary school during recess. So it's only an issue in the elementary school. They obviously don't have recess in the middle school, so that's why we only refer to the elementary school, but they are not allowed to touch them in the primary school.
I believe they do have iPads and.
In iLab possibly, but I have not heard of any. But
They use
again,
it inside recess there in primary school.
they use iPads.
No, they use the Chromebooks or whatever it is.
They have
They-
iPads,
yeah.
lab, and iLab.
And
And
iPads,
yeah.
and iPads. But I, again, this is the first time I'm hearing that. I don't think they
Sometimes during indoor, it depends, the kids got to choose, I think.
I've been told by my daughter that they're not allowed to use the Chromebooks during recess in the primary school. Yeah,
Every
I
teacher's always
suppose, but have you spoken to the teacher about that? and
No, this was
confirmed it?
going back, my son, they don't use, some kids do, I witnessed it. When I went to do a party and they had indoor recess, I saw the kids on
Oh,
it.
really?
I don't, it was this year or last year, I don't know, but they could, I guess
Okay,
it
well,
depends on.
then we can definitely, I assume we can make that a blanket.
Yeah, I know.
If we're not gonna take them away from the elementary school kids and
Yeah, I don't think it's
let the
every day, though.
kindergartners whip them out, so.
Yes, I have a question. So one of the things that came up in one of the meetings was a bit of an equity issue across grade levels. So one of the moms had mentioned there were spelling tests in certain second grade classes and not in others. I had mentioned that, some of the social studies instruction was because I'm the type of parent that would want spelling tests for my kid, traditional type spelling tests in second grade, first grade. That, I find that beneficial, my daughter could have benefited. They only start going in third grade and up. That,
I mean, I just recall from our conversations in that, I know that we went through the curriculum in Atlas Rubicon to see if spelling tests were supposed to be a part of the actual designated curriculum for those grade levels. I don't believe they were, I don't remember
Yes,
specifically.
if I may, I think the one thing we're talking about, these are recommendations that have came forward the parents. I think what what Mrs. Dillon and Mrs. Denoya have done, have brought those recommendations back to the board to hear what the recommendations of the parents were, and we've also shared them with the administration, as she said. So we need time to kind of go through them and say, to follow up and work with staff and to say, okay, here's where progressively where we're going to be looking at things, you know, in terms.
Okay, so that's definitely something you're thinking about.
Right, it's absolutely.
Okay.
It's something that none of, at this point in time, it's the consistency and those types of things, and during the meeting, so it's not, you know, we also wanna find a balance, because we wanna make sure that we're looking at things through the lens of what's beneficial maybe for one class set, right, and say like all students, it might not be appropriate for every classroom setting. So in terms of saying, a third grade mainstream class respectfully might not have the same needs as a resource room third grade LLD program or something like that. So to make a unilateral statement to say that all third grade classes are going to have spelling tests is inappropriate. So I think that we can, I'm sorry, I'll wait for Chris. Go
I'm
ahead.
talking about the inclusive setting, which is for the most part, most of the classes, I believe.
Understood. But what I'm just saying is we will be making follow-up recommendations, as we
Okay,
said during the
perfect.
parent advisory. Absolutely.
I appreciate that.
Absolutely.
And again, I mean, I guess I just wanna, you go first.
I have a question about what these kids asked before about like, you know, banning like certain sites, like it's always been an issue. I remember when we first moved into town, and I looked at the computer, and I heard like, oh, the kids have access to whatever. They had more access than I was comfortable with, I'll just say that. Because I see Allison looking at me over there. But instead of like trying to ban 1 trillion pages, like can't we just allow the kids certain pages? Like if I'm teaching a lesson, there's like 10 pages I know they should have, and just have it. So when one of them comes up to the teacher and says like, I need this page, they can just add that page, rather than trying to blanketly ban a whole bunch of stuff, because the kids are gonna get through it anyway.
You can't,
That's a good recommendation.
Go ahead.
it's not that easy to do. You have to put it to one guy, only one guy has the ability to do that. That takes him like 5 minutes. It takes 20 minutes for that to load for just one student. Then think about, let's say, like 200 students need to do that. One after another, is everyone just gonna stop what they're doing and just go and figure it out if there's a research project?
But that's the problem you have now, right?
Yeah. Like,
So-
if we were to ban everything, then you can't, it would take so
No, I'm
much
not saying
time.
ban everything, but there's like 1 trillion websites out there.
Yeah.
And they're trying to ban most of them from you, except for the ones that you need. So instead of trying to ban them all and only allow some through, why not just allow just the ones that you need? So instead of banning everything, it's like, okay, like you're only allowed to go 10 places. So when you need an 11th, I can add it, but it's 11 for everybody.
So I think that there's, if I may, there's an assumption that that's not happening, okay? And I think that we need to, that's why I think it's important to allow the administration time to work with the teachers, that if the board wants more information about how it's being facilitated, we've seen several Google Classroom that have the sites that are previewed by the teachers that say, here's where you're going for your work, okay? It's not automatically an open source. So I think that in the conversations, parents brought their perspectives and their own experiences, which was valued and reflected upon, and that's where the recommendations are coming from. But I think there's also knowledge and to be had and shared by the district, which is part of the communication and consistency, about the practices, the real practices that are happening, rather than the assumptions. And I think that it's our due diligence to share that as part of the recommendations.
Thank you, and if I can just add, and hopefully understand Mr. Jenkins correctly, the way I've heard it termed, and to Dr. Garabay's point earlier, when she said, we have firewalls, you can't necessarily keep everybody out, other people are working to get past those firewalls with stuff, and we're gonna look at enhancing those firewalls. I believe Mr. Jenkins' point was something that I think our IT people should definitely look at, and the way I've heard it phrased, IT-wise, was rather than trying to blacklist certain things and say firewalls to keep certain things out, you have a completely different take where you only whitelist certain things, if that's, okay, so I am understanding. So if that helps any, I think that's a great recommendation, and I would certainly say that's something, and certainly our communications committee and policy committee should be working together, and will work with our IT people, but the idea of, particularly based on grade level, only if they're not doing that now, because when I heard you talk about firewalls, I think Mr. Jenkins is correct, that maybe we look at only whitelisting certain things, so that only, there, no need to firewall out certain things, instead, you only allow limited things in, so.
And I just want to say, you know, I think that the perception of this Chromebook issue is vastly different than the actual issue, and I think this was a really time-consuming process, and it's one that I'm actually really proud of. And I think that taking action in the ways that you might be speaking of could be really irresponsible, because we really did learn so much. Just 1 second, please. But I just don't agree with making a rash decision with these teachers' teaching styles and curriculums, and we learned a lot, and it's not something that you can just kind of jump on and make a quick decision on. My perception, like I said, going into before today, was different than what I saw. And I don't want to hear from anyone that teachers were changing the way that they instructed today, because if you think for 1 second that a third grader wouldn't be like, why aren't we using our Chromebooks today? I know that a student would have a reaction to any disruption from their routine.
Yeah.
So I felt very confident that what I was witnessing was what actually takes place day to day. And, you know, again, I'm really proud of the work. It took a long time, this entire year, to go through it. So the actions that we have kind of recommended from the parents, this isn't necessarily us, the one action that we felt comfortable really nailing down was the indoor recess. The rest is really up to administration, and it was our job to just portray it all to you. So, what was your question?
It was about, basically, the Chromebook and reading. So my understanding was that one of the main resources in my daughter's class was actually RazKids, and that's digital. All research points to actual books being used for, you know, increasing comprehension.
So just, if I could speak to that a little bit, and granted, we were in a third grade classroom. We witnessed children observing an essay that the teacher wrote, reading it aloud from the board. It was like, you know, like, as if she had chalked it out, right? It was on the board, and they read it from the board. Then they worked on their own essays on paper. Then they did a stretch break, and we got our yayas out. Then we went to the floor. Actually, we didn't, but the kids did. And I did. I went to the floor. But anyway, they sat down, and the teacher discussed a fable with them and asked them to close their eyes to visualize what was happening in the story. Have I nailed this? Am I doing okay?
Yeah,
Okay.
she's doing
So, and then, there's no screen happening, okay? And then, if they couldn't keep their eyes closed, she asked them to cover their eyes. So there were children in the room covering their eyes so that they could listen better to the room and what was happening. Then they were asked to reflect on that. And then they went into their workstations. Some of that did involve the computer. All textbooks are now on a computer. It's completely different than when we grew up.
There are still some workbooks, but also these applications like Raz or like IXL, they're tied to the students' map scores, which is something that, you know, we were taught a lot about today. So the differentiation is really important in our district, and I think that their map scores, being able to direct the type of work that they're doing on these apps for a very limited amount of time during the day, I see no detriment to that. I think it was really beneficial to be able, the one student that we spoke to was so proud of his map scores and the individualized assignment that he had on his IXL, and he couldn't wait to tell us all about it. So, you know, I think that, listen, there's a time and place for technology, but when it can actually take the data from your test scores to differentiate and individualize your lesson, lesson plan, I guess.
And if I may, from Raz Kids, this is a supplemental resource.
It's supplemental. It's
What, during back to school night, and we can, I recommend that we reach out again, as you have to Dr. Reynolds, your child's teacher, to speak to them directly about the guided reading libraries that are bins of books that are in the classroom that the students use and progress through as they progress through their FMP. Raz Kids is a supplemental resource. That's not, so we can have another offline we can have, another conversation follow-up, because I certainly want to address your concerns, as we have considered, we've continued to have the conversation, looping in Mr. Osmond, your teacher, all of those things.
Was there a majority of parents engaged in these meetings that expressed an interest in limiting Chromebook time?
During recess, yeah, I would say the majority.
Just limited to recess? It
Well,
wasn't
and
concerned
to
in the
maintain
classroom?
the balance. I don't know if any of us know enough to say whether or not it can be limited.
I'm asking if the parents that you attended these meetings
They
expressed a
expressed
consensus
concern about
about?
how
No,
much,
Some,
but
some did.
That's
Yeah.
my question.
I wouldn't say I would say the majority expressed concern and just
For balance.
not knowing what was going on, and that's why we felt it important to go and to be able to speak to it, because I think that there, frankly, is a lot of distrust in when this information comes from administrators, and I'm not one of them, and
So the
we didn't
parents
feel
ha-
comfortable having teachers stand up here.
At the end of this evaluative process, were the parents happy with the outcome before this presentation?
Yeah, this is really the finale, so they have their
I
chances.
I don't really know what the recommendations are. I know indoor recess, great, thank you, that's great, but what other changes since our hundreds of meetings that we had, whatever, the number, it's a lot. What else, and I know you guys can't change it, who
Right.
can, and when, where,
So we had the list on here.
I saw the list. and I-
Excuse me 1 second, is this going to be posted
Yes,
tomorrow?
and all members of the PAC, as you were on, you received the recommendations in an
Just-
email when we invited you to this board meeting. And then there was a survey that you provided feedback on the recommendations for, that came from me. So you should have received that. If you didn't, and I'm sorry that you didn't.
Yeah, I just don't, like, maybe we're all here, maybe we could say what the recommendations are, because I hear no indoor
In the
recess.
interest of time, I don't think I should go back through the
Yeah,
whole
they
list
did
again.
roll through
Yeah.
about 10 for
I would say
each of the
subcommittee
things,
was on
7 for the whole child, and 9 by my count for the school climate. So I would rather not go through them all again, but based on everything we're hearing, we want to hear any other questions from anybody, and comments on those who worked on it. But as far as rehashing, they did make specific recommendations, and those 16 or so are, if you don't already have them, they'll be posted tomorrow. Good.
And I'll resend it to the committee.
Just for the sake of time, I just don't want to go too long. Thank you. But,
I'm sorry, I'm annoying.
Please.
I just like to make a point. I think that, yes, you should block things, but when there's a will, there's a way. And us kids are very, will there's a way.
Crafty.
We have smart people, and they are, yeah. So I feel like the more you restrict us, the more we will make better things to make it harder to stop. So I feel like if we went ban everything, one, that's just gonna be how you do it, and two, all the kids are gonna come together, we're gonna go, all right, guys, let's get to it, and we're gonna find
It's a
something
good parenting lesson.
that's
too,
like
you know?
unstoppable.
Yeah.
And then, well, then that, no one wins, then the
Noted,
kids
noted.
win.
Yeah.
So I
Like
feel
we're on a
like
hamster wheel.
you can't ban everything.
Go ahead.
So he's my child.
Yes.
I think completely different than him. I'm sorry, I'm old school. I want books back. Kids are on computers. He's dilly-dallying for hours trying to get his stuff done. And I think Chromebooks are not helpful. I'm sorry.
thank you.
Sorry, Mother.
So if you're banning stuff like Google and YouTube, there are certain, like, things, like, sorry, let me rephrase myself. I'm on the morning announcements, right? Tyler is, I am, a lot of, like, 6th, 7th, and 8th graders are, a ton of 5th graders are even. So when you ban stuff like Google, we can't get the images to put on our performance, and then that's a problem because then the performance won't look as good as we want it to.
I think the theme across a lot of this is consistency, right? And so some classrooms might use, and then I'll speak primarily for the elementary school. It's consistency. It's how many kids are on the Chromebook, how many are not, which which teacher, how this teacher teaches how that. You saw a very small snapshot today, which I'm not arguing was not what really happened. But I think among all the different teachers between 3, 4, and 5, there, from what I can understand, hear, and feel, there is just no consistency of time. I think that's what it comes down to. I think we would feel better if we could standardize something so it is consistent. And just to say, my pediatrician a couple years ago, when I took the girls for their well visit, she said, go get their eyes checked. So they just passed, the test. She said, no, she said, you wouldn't believe the number of kids who have had eye issues from being on either computers or Chromebooks in school now. So I agree with what, whatever guidance the APA might have in collaboration with what the needs of the curriculum is, that it, at least for elementary now, be consistent. We talked about consistency with the lift tickets. One kid on my bus stop has 2, the other has 40. Consistency across the board.
And we did touch upon
Yeah,
that. We
and I
talked
just
about
wanted that to be-
consistency across a grade level, right?
Yeah.
So like, for example, this afternoon, and then I think I'm just gonna wrap this up because we don't need to be here all night. But we went to 3, 4, how many, Dr. Beck, I'm sorry, how many classes were we in today? Yes, 3. We were in 3 math classes in 4th grade. Every teacher taught the same lesson completely differently. So, in one room, the teacher was working on the whiteboard with the students in the small group area. All the other kids were working. In the next group, one woman had she was working from the smart board and drawing with them, and then the kids got up and did the drawing of they were doing mirror images, so that you all know that's why I'm doing this. And then, symmetry, yeah. Math teacher, wink, wink. And so, every kid was going through the same lesson, but each teacher has a different approach, right? And so you're gonna get that across your grades, but everybody got their experience and got their learning out of it. I don't know. I mean, that's just what we witnessed. So, thank you all for your time. Parents, thank you. We appreciate all of your time. So,
Yes,
thank you.
thanks so much.
Thank you both, and the parents again, as I said when we got started. So, we're just going to acknowledge that there were 3 communications between the last 2 board meetings, and now it's time for the report of the president. We'll get moving along. I'll keep mine brief. I'm thrilled that next year's school budget has now been adopted without any tax increase, while still maintaining all the services and programs we value in our excellent Colts Neck schools. I'm also proud of the board's accomplishments in the first 5 months of 2024. We're live streaming meetings, we've established student liaisons, implemented a uniform homework policy, creating an ad hoc committee on arts, sports, and extracurricular activities, and of course, passing a fiscally conservative budget. I appreciate the recommendations from our board members who have worked closely with concerned parents on the Parents Advisory Committee this evening, but I do believe that we need to have board discussion tonight under new business in case any board members feel we should take any additional action regarding recommendations. Today's agenda is packed with important items, including numerous annual appointments, which we handled expeditiously, thank you all. And notably, on the regular agenda, we have a significant additional cost saving that involves changing our healthcare provider for all of our employees. I want to extend my gratitude again to Dr. Tehan for dedicating yet another evening in Colts Neck. I don't know how you do it with all the different schools and if you actually work during the day too, because it's crazy. But Dr. Tehan's here, and after the regular meetings, he's going to help us guide through what we need to do for our annual superintendent evaluation. So I really appreciate that. And lastly, and certainly as important as anything else, I understand, I hope correctly, that it's Angelique's birthday today. So I wanted to just wish you a happy birthday.
Thank you, John.
At 30, whatever it is. So good. That being said, we'll move on to committee reports. Buildings and Grounds, Safety and Security, Kevin?
No report.
Thank you. Communications, Vinny?
Not much. I reviewed the last meeting that we had in the gym. That came in loud and clear, but we had the microphones in front of us.
Right.
Still, the meetings in here are still not as clear, but hopefully we can get some microphone updates soon.
Thank you. Work on sound. Curriculum Committee, Jess?
So nothing, we haven't met since our last meeting, but just as a reminder for all the board members, on June 12th, we will be readopting all of our curriculum, and there has been some changes made to that. So as I've been saying, if you have any questions, please reach out to administration or myself so that we can address those questions prior to that June 12th meeting where we'll be voting on adopting all of that curriculum.
Jason? I know you've had a ton going on. Most of it's made it to the agenda, and there's more on tonight, but anything you wanted to touch on?
No, just looking forward to finishing up the interviews for all the candidates who sent in the RFPs.
Thank you very much. And back to Jess, Policy Committee?
Yeah, so let me bring it up here. Sorry, I had it up and then I clicked off. Okay, so on May 9th, we did meet as a committee with our current policy vendor, Strauss Esme and Associates, and we also met with New Jersey School Board and Associates to do some interviews for our policy vendor folder. Following that, the full board did receive the meeting minutes. So obviously Strauss Esme and Associates spoke to us about what they're currently providing us with, and then New Jersey School Boards spoke to us about what they could potentially offer us. Following that meeting, we did keep in touch as a committee because that meeting was pretty lengthy, as you can imagine, with the 2 interviews back to back. So we did keep in touch via email to continue our conversation. We added some items into the comparison chart, which administration had already sent out to the full board. And the majority of the committee did decide following that to remain with our current policy holder, which is Strauss Esme and Associates. So you will see that on our upcoming agenda for the June 12th meeting for our vote on that. Again, if any of the board members have any questions, please feel free to reach out to me. This was a fairly lengthy back and forth between the work that administration put in, as well as the work of the committee and what we debriefed on following that. So I want to make sure that nothing is overlooked from that.
Thank you. Any questions or comments as she asked for?
Yeah, I just wanted to discuss a couple things with this. First off, I want to thank Jessica for leading the policy committee, and putting all the time in. Again, we did sit for, considerably long time for the interviews. But I do want to put my opinion, even though I am in the minority of the recommendations to stay with Strauss Esme. I'm actually against staying with them. I want to just say that after what happened with the policy 5756, Strauss Esme misguided the state by misinterpreting that policy. And as we all know, causing 3 districts in Monmouth County to be dragged into frivolous lawsuits, which they're still fighting. So I can't in good conscience, even though I am in the minority, I ask taxpayers of this district to continue paying for their services. The family unit to me is very important, and that policy caused a big disruption to parents around the state and for the transgender community as well. So for a firm to be highly educated as they portray themselves to be, I want to think that as soon as the policy became known to the public and the public received it, they would have all used their resources to comb through it carefully and find obvious flawed with the policy, and that it was presented, should have been presented as guidance and not a law. So in my personal opinion, I think that was a big error on their part. So with this, I'd like to, I don't know if this is the right time, I never get the time, right, but I do like to make a motion to vote against keeping Strauss Esme and switch to New Jersey school boards. I think they're very well equipped to handle our policies. I think they have a lot of, personnel at our disposal, and after what happened, I really think that Strauss Esme doesn't deserve our business.
Before I ask for a second, I appreciate your comments for sure, and thanks for participating in the meetings and expressing the minority position, which now is important.
Stinks being in the minority, but.
Yep. But Jess, can I just ask, do you anticipate, because action to stay with Strauss Esme would not be on until the June 12th meeting, do you anticipate any additional meetings policy meetings prior to the 12th?
We don't have anything on the books yet. We are, as Jason mentioned, we are meeting for the legal RFP, but as far as with the policy vendors, no, we don't have anything on there now. But what I would like to say is that, and I completely appreciate your opinion, your views. As you know, when we were discussing this and debriefing with it all, we took a lot of things into consideration. So both vendors had pros and cons, as our comparison chart showed, both. And I just think it should be noted that New Jersey school boards also had that policy 5756 as a mandated policy. So, that is for sure worth noting. That being said, no one knows how important that misguidance was than me. I understand that through and through because I spent the better part of last year working on that. But we didn't just look at one thing. And when we're making these decisions, I think it's important to look at all of the factors that go into that, including their experience, the resources, online platforms, their staff that's available to us, the lead time, the cost. And this year right now, we have a lot going on in our district. And, listening to both the feedback from both you and Allison, who were the members that were present during our interview process, and then looking at that comparison chart, speaking with administration. This was not something, like I said, that we did, very quickly or lightly. So there's a lot that went into this decision. And I just don't think at this time, it's appropriate to be changing our vendors based on all of those factors, not just one thing in a silo. And as I said, I'm going to remain vigilant in addressing any issues that we have with Strauss Esme and Associates, as I would if we went with New Jersey school boards. And again, that's if it passes, when we vote on it. I hope everyone feels comfortable voting on whichever vendor they feel is appropriate. And so, during that June 12th meeting, we'll vote on it, and then we'll go from there. But no, sorry, John, to answer your question, after all of that, we don't have anything scheduled to meet.
Amy, did you have a comment?
I did want to ask a question, but Jessica actually did answer it. But I think it is important to note, my question was how how the school boards handled 5756, because if there's going to be a huge factor in between the two of them, I would like to know that. So I appreciate you pointing that out and answering that they also had the same opinion that Strauss Esme did. So I appreciate you already answering that, but that was my question.
Thank you.
Yeah, and I don't know how they would have handled it necessarily, because they weren't our vendor, and I don't know how they handled it with districts that they represented. I think it's one of those situations where you'll never know because we weren't with them. So another school district may not have asked similar questions that we would have asked, or questions that we did ask Strauss Esme. So, you don't know unless you're in it, that exact situation. But again, it was not, there was not just one single factor. There was a lot of things that we put into this decision.
Just for clarification on that, and I know Allison has a question or comment too, so that I understand it correctly, do you know if New Jersey School Boards Association had put it out as a mandatory policy as Strauss Esme did?
Yes.
They refer to it as a critical policy.
Now it's
Their terminology is referred to as a critical
They
policy.
used the terminology
Which
of
is a
critical.
requirement of CUSAC, or they deem it
Okay.
in the same way. Strauss as Mayor refers to
Yeah,
it, it's
because-
mandated, they call it critical.
I understood what Jess said about, like, maybe not asking the same questions, not knowing how it went, but how it was originally listed is what, I want to know whether or not it was mandatory. And Allison, I'm sorry,
That's it. I was just gonna say that it was referenced the same way.
critical, yeah. Okay, on this one, I'm just going to ask a little due deference, little cooperation. Ask Jess if you'll consider, maybe before the 12th, getting your committee together or extending the day when you do get together for the final interviews to entertain a little more discussion on this and with your committee. And Ange, I'll just ask for your cooperation, being that it will be listed on the June 12th meeting, rather than deal with it tonight. I'd rather deal with it when it's actually up for a vote.
That's fine.
Thank you, both. Okay,
Yeah, we can do that. We'll just add it to the agenda.
yep. Okay, the Advocacy Government Relations Committee, Ange?
I'll try to make it brief because I know the meeting is going way over, but I did go to Trenton on May 16th to advocate as a private citizen
Okay,
against.
I'm sorry, just a point of clarification. I'm sorry, I have to interrupt. If you're doing this as your personal mission to go to Trenton, why is it being reported on for the school district?
I was gonna,
I need to know now before you get into your
Okay.
detail,
Well, I
because
was
your detail
gonna-
can get really hard for people in the room. I'm upset.
okay,
I'm
well,
upset.
I wanted to bring light to the bills that were on the table and why I went.
Okay,
If you have
but
a problem with that, I'll
You're
refrain.
doing it as your person. Here you
I
are on the
understand.
dais. You
I'm
are
just
a
saying
board
that I
member.
went to Trenton in opposition to the bills that I was gonna explain that were on the table in Trenton or have been postponed. I don't see what the issue is.
And I don't have an issue, and I
I
understand your concern,
I
and
think
you
it's
interrupted
concerned.
already, but I think she should be allowed to finish the
Fine,
report.
let it happen.
We have a little respect and decorum for everybody at this board.
Yep.
And we can talk in a civil manner to everybody.
Okay, I will retract my statement that I went to Trenton on May 16th to advocate for children in this district, okay? I just wanted to let the community know that there's bills on the table. The Serena Rice appointment is basically still on, on the back burner. I haven't heard much about the Serena Rice appointment. The Freedom to Read Act also is basically been, suspended or postponed, I don't know the right terminology. They actually passed, the New Jersey, the Oprah bill was passed by both chambers of legislation. This I thought was significant to our district because Oprah is very important to me. I'm sure it's important to you. You guys, have the right to, make Oprah requests for any of us on here, public officials. I support that. I am a public official, but I do support Oprah. So basically the New Jersey legislators gutted the Open Public Record Act. It erased decades of progress providing access to records on local, county, and state levels, even after considerable pushback from the public. The bill was signed by Governor Murphy, will cut off all access to a wide array of public documents and data. The origin of the bill came to light because people felt it put an undue burden on municipal clerks, which, is kind of foolish. We pay taxes, those things are important. I think, I think it was very wrong for whoever supported the bill and passed it. I believe in complete government transparency, and like I said, I was in opposition to that. That's all I have for government advocacy.
Thank you. Any comments or questions? All right, moving on from board member liaisons. Brenna, anything more you want to say on the Parent Advisory Committee? Yep, I would think. Thank you. Amy, anything from the Colts Neck PTO?
No, just, end of year activities, getting ready to wrap up for the year.
Thank you. Colts Neck Township Committee, I did go to recent Township Committee meeting. It was a special meeting held, in fact, in our facilities over at the primary school. I forget the exact date, but I think it was last week, and very interesting times coming up. I talk about the school budget and taxes and how I was proud that we were able to put together one with no increase, because when you get your tax bill, you're gonna see all the different entities that tax you, and it hardly ever happens that there's no increase from one of those entities. This year, you will get that from us. Other ones will go up. And in the future, it should be a concern of every resident here. The taxes can be very heavily impacted by the fact that we have some heavy-duty affordable housing obligations. That's what this special township committee meeting was about. I get it, it's tough from the township committee's perspective. There's state laws, the Mount Laurel laws, that require towns to have affordable housing. We have experts involved to try and help mitigate the cost and expense to the township of doing this, but there's more coming, and most likely it's going to mean in the years to come, it's going to be more kids in the school, a growing school system, a different tax base than we have now. So important stuff going on, and I was glad to be able to be at the township committee to hear about it. Kevin, anything from you senior citizens?
No.
Okay, good. Ange, did anything else from the county or state?
Just briefly, there's one thing, there are New Jersey School Boards is accepting nominations for school board members across the, school board member of the year across the state. Nominees must have 5 consecutive years of experience and must hold the New Jersey School Board Association Certified Board Member designation. The winner will be recognized at the 2024 workshop in Atlantic City in October.
Thank you very much. And that brings us to
You got
our...
my head on. You got my head on.
I'm sorry?
You got mine.
Did I skip you?
Yeah.
I'm so sorry. Back to
That's all right.
your committee?
Ad hoc.
Yep.
Man,
I had the lines wrong for your comments.
Just a couple things.
Vinny, anything on your arts, sports, and extracurricular activities committee?
Just 2 things to bring up. And on May 21st was the Spring Sing, and Dr. Garabay was kind enough to send me a clip of it. The course was singing Hey Jude, which is from my favorite band.
Nice.
Great song. And June 4th, Tuesday, June 4th would be the art show and spring musical at the primary school. So if anybody wants to go to that.
Music and art updates, all good. Thank you. So with that, we get to our esteemed superintendent and her report.
I'll keep it nice and short.
Thank you.
So there are many things that are going on in the district. It is a great time. It's a fun time. It's the end of the year, and there's a lot of culminating activities, celebrations. But most importantly, I want to congratulate our students who, over the past 2 weeks, finished their NTS BOE testing. So it's not a good, I want to congratulate all of them who put in a lot of time and a lot of energy into it, because feedback that we received from staff was that they really did concentrate, and they really did put forth their best effort. So regardless, we're proud of you, super proud of you with whatever, those outcomes are. So thank you for all of that, taking care of that. You mentioned the Spring Sing, which is a fantastic whole district celebration of music and singing, and kudos to Mrs. Hubbard, Mr. Willis, and Ms. Spitzer for just that great activity. It's just a fun night, and that auditorium at Cedar Drive was packed. I mean, talk about packed, but it was fun. It was a great energy. The CDMS art show, Mr. Walker was great with regards to putting on his art show and featuring all of our artists. That is a voluntary, and I'm so proud of a lot of the artists who were here, and also for volunteering to have their artwork displayed for the art show that night. So kudos to everyone involved in that. Next week, we have our American Youth Voices, which is a great program that brings together students from all around the state. They fill the arena out near Trenton, Newark, right, in Newark. And it is a late night, but it is a super fun night. And if you don't think that thousands of voices coming together and song together is a powerful thing, it really is. And excited for that experience for our elementary and Cedar Drive students next week. Also next week is our Stokes trip. A lot of work, a lot of time, a lot of planning on the agenda tonight. You see our staff. You've approved staff to chaperones. You see parents. It takes the parents to get it together and volunteer to be cabin people. So best of luck, Ms. McCormick, to you. Just kidding. And the other parents who are going as cabin people. It is a great event, and I really truly look forward to sharing highlights of that, because it is a very special and unique trip to our districts. As Mr. Rugnetta pointed out, our CRES and combined primary school art show is coming up in the next couple weeks. June 12th, the board meeting will be likely at the primary school. That is a great night. That is also going to be our celebration of the students and our staff who we'll be recognizing our teachers and educational service professionals of the year, as well as some other student recognition, so that's a great night. For us, I want to point out that action item number 6, superintendent action item number 6, has our definitive date for CDMS graduation, which is June 18th, which is at Cold Lake High School at 6 o'clock. We amended the calendar to reflect officially the graduation date. And then finally, I also just want to point out, so when we get there, I don't have to pause. Actually, what I wanted to say too, also under action item number 3, when we get there, the second part will talk about the actual report that was done, the self-assessment. We will do a very open and shut open public comment, take public comment on the report, and then close public comment. But I just want to point out that the year on the second part of that says for each of the 3 school districts for the 22-23 school year. The first part of the resolution has the correct year. The second part is supposed to reflect the 22-23, and it is last year's we are doing a self-reflection on. And then finally, under personnel item number 1, I'm recommending the approval of the retirement of Mrs. Christine Henbest, who has provided the district with 24 years of service, and the only thing, I know, the only thing that pales in comparison to her passion and love for mathematics is her passion and love for children. So we wish, on behalf of the district and the Board of Education, I want to just truly wish Mrs. Henbest the best in her retirement, health, happiness, enjoyment of everything, and may she have as much joy as she's brought to all of us throughout her time here in Cold Lake. And that concludes my superintendent's report.
I thank you, but I have to second that. I think all my kids have had Miss Henbest, and I got an email from her today talking about what's going on with Jonas, so she's not winding down as she's retiring. She's just as committed. She's an amazing teacher, and gave Phyllis and I some nice news about Jonas in math for next year, so can't say enough, and we'll miss her for sure. All right, there's just 2 information items regarding the fire security and student suspensions, as well as the HIB actions. And then that opens us up for comments on any topic from any constituents that are here. So, if anyone like to speak, sure, Courtney.
Hi, Courtney McCormick, 5 Qualla Court. I just want to speak kind of on behalf of my 2 student liaisons who are not here because they were slackers and did not pack ahead of time because they're leaving from Hershey Park tomorrow morning with the Cedar Drive band and chorus. And I just wanted to say from them, thank you for all these opportunities that you've given them this year to do these amazing things. Hershey, like you said, Stokes next week, AYV, they're very excited to do all of these things. There's a robotics competition coming up at Cedar, and it's just amazing to see all the things that our kids get to participate in. And I know they wanted to say that tonight, but they did pack.
I think they made the right call, or you made the right call. Yeah.
Sarah DeSalvatore, 2 Red Hawk Road South, but I am speaking on behalf of my younger daughter, Ava, who had to leave to go do her homework. She was very worried about getting her homework done tonight. She came into the car this evening when I picked her up from club, or from the bus stop, and she was really upset. And she's like, my back is killing me, it's hurting, can you complain? I said, well, you know what, there's a board meeting tonight. Why don't you come and give your perspective on something you would like to see changed? So she was here and she wrote something out. I printed it, but I will read it on her behalf. Hello, my name is Ava DeSalvatore. I am a 4th grade student at Crest. I wanted to bring to the board's attention an issue that I have faced while being in the school. Whenever there is an assembly, a show, or a guest speaker, the children need to sit on the dirty cafeteria floor for a very long time. I think the big shoe is today, and it was about an hour. My back begins to hurt, and I become very sore, and my feet fall asleep. I just want to bring this to the Board of Education to see if they can work together with Mr. Osmond to ensure we have proper seating for these performances. Thank you so much for your attention and consideration.
Thank you. And I'm not familiar with the situation, but if we can look into that, that's great. We certainly would never want to put the kids in a situation where they're uncomfortable. If we can do anything better, we will. And I'm sorry I didn't let her speak when the other ones were speaking.
She was getting ahead of herself.
And thank you for sure.
And then I would like to also just comment on, something that my daughter and I felt very strongly about, which was our letter to the Board of Education about mental health accommodations within the school district. As you can see even here, right, you have two HIBs. You have two HIBs that were here. I don't know what school, I don't know what it's about, but the guidance counselors are extremely involved in this process and in listening to students. And just want to confirm that the Board of Education has decided not to replace Mrs. Rousseau in any capacity for a guidance counselor for just the last month of school.
That's correct. No decision's been made going forward in the school years, but for this last month of school, there will be no replacement.
So who is handling any type of issues with the kids? I mean, no one?
No, I feel fully confident that we have lots of staff. I'm not gonna name it.
It's a month away.
As I said when I answered your emails, I think a lot of our staff is equipped to handle children's concerns, emotional upset, issues that go on in the school, in addition to the guidance counselors. And I believe we're adequately staffed to finish out the year with all of those people working.
Can parents have the names of those people?
I'm sorry?
Can parents at some point have the names of what multiple staff
I think at
members
different
can be
levels,
involved?
every teacher here and most other certified staff is equipped to handle a child's initial issue. They may then move it on to somebody else, obviously depending on the severity of it. But yeah, teachers, I have every confidence, deal with emotional, social and emotional issues in their classroom every day.
So was the deciding factor cost?
The deciding factor in my mind, and the reason I brought it up, was because to finish out the last, whatever it would have been at that meeting, it would be a little more than now 6 weeks or a month, did not justify making the decision then for going forward. Because as you may or may not know, once we bring somebody on, they're on until they decide to not renew or the superintendent decides to not renew. So I thought it was too quick to make the decision that we would be stuck with.
Well, I respectfully ask the board to reconsider.
I appreciate anybody else's opinion, but I do trust that there's not going to be any issue based on that, and I'm sorry you're upset by it.
You're putting a price on mental health.
Yeah, sure.
Vanessa Dawson, 75537. I'm so sorry you feel so strongly about this. As an educator, I deal with 4th and 5th graders. These children need support. I am not qualified as an educator to provide mental health support to children who are in crisis. And I have dealt with children in crisis a multitude of times. And without the support of the guidance counselors, we would have not gotten through. There is protocol, there are steps that they need to follow that we are not aware of, and we don't know how to, and we don't have the capabilities to do that. I have 54 other students. If one student is in this crisis, what am I doing with my 54 other students?
Sure.
So to say that
sorry.
you would not, it's okay, to say that you would not consider providing support to the staff in your school to then make sure that the children in our district are supported is beyond upsetting. So as a parent, I completely understand, because children are going through crisis every day. Unfortunately, they are social media in 4th and 5th grade, they have access to it, and so they are getting involved in things that they don't have the capacity to know that it's something they shouldn't be involved in, and they need to have staff in the schools to provide the support that are available at all times, because teachers are not. And those are the only other people that are available that you're saying, correct?
Yeah, and I agree with everything you said. I think I was clear. I never meant to say and didn't say, oh, any teacher can do the same thing the guidance counselors could do as far as support for those kids. But let me just finish. As you pointed out, you do get hit with that every day. If it's a kid who's just a little upset about something, I would guess that you and most teachers handle it. If it rises to the level that you believe they need to see a guidance counselor, the school nurse, let me just finish, please. Then I'm sure you refer them on. But at some point, yes, as important as mental health is, the board still has to make a decision. So does that mean for this size school district with this age kids, we should have 3 guidance counselors? Should it be 4? Should it be 10? All I'm saying is, it's a decision the board always has to make, and a decision on how many guidance counselors we keep in place does not in any way mean that me or any other board member doesn't care about the mental health of children.
Okay, and I'm not saying that you said you don't care about it, but with that being said, what is the plan when you're saying you're not replacing? So who does my child go to if they're in a crisis? I need to know that there is somebody available from 8:30, from when they step in the building until they leave at the end of the day, that they have somebody to provide the support that they need.
And I'll say it one
know
more,
that they're safe.
and I say it one more time. No decision was made for the upcoming school year, but the decision to let these last 4 weeks go without a replacement now, I feel confident that the students will be well cared for.
And being in a school system, this is the time of year where all these things are rising. The amount of HIBs that are happening on a daily basis. Constantly there are events happening. It's the unstructured environments. Things are happening where we don't have the staff. So if we don't have the staff to provide the children the safety that they need, then how can you say that they're going to be safe on a daily basis?
Because I don't agree that we don't have the
So
staff.
who is the staff that's providing?
I'm sorry, like I said, I believe we're sufficiently staffed to finish out the school year, and I'm not gonna say, oh, because then the teacher will refer to this particular person. I don't know what they'll do, depending on the level of it.
Chain of command, correct? If you know what happens in a school building on a day-to-day basis, we have a chain of command that we have to follow. And if that chain of command is broken, who do we go to?
Well, in that situation, I would imagine that if it was something that should have went to a guidance counselor, then it would go to one of the other guidance counselors. Hopefully, they will be available and able to handle it, but I can't get into every specific. I understand that you and other people think that position should be replaced for the next 4 weeks, but I feel differently.
Do you know the workload of a guidance
I
counselor?
do, I'm a guidance counselor. I'm a guidance counselor, and I could tell you that there's no one qualified for that. I just have a question. Kids who are mandated to have counseling, what are you doing with those kids?
I'm sorry?
IEPs. I'm just talking in general, I'm a guidance counselor.
Yeah.
I have kids that are mandated to have counseling. Why aren't they getting their mandation? Well, what the mandates? Just like OT.
Do you know what
You're
mandate?
out of compliance if you don't have
There's
it.
certain students in their IEPs,
okay.
or 5, or whatever their program is that dictates.
And keeping the
special
2 for the rest of the year, I don't believe puts us out of compliance to be able to do that.
If I pick up children in my capacity as a guidance counselor, once a week for 30 minutes, I need to pick up those child, just like the OT and the speech therapist needs to pick up their kids, a guidance counselor needs to pick up their kids. So there needs to be a guidance counselor on staff, because you're violating their IEP at that point.
Well, I did look.
And the guidance counselor is qualified at suicide ideation, all these different things that the AP principal might not know the questions, the right questions. So if you have a child that, God forbid, wants to do something to themselves, there needs to be someone to question that child, not someone to guess the questions. There's certain protocols that need to be done. So having a guidance counselor on staff is something that needs to be done, just like we have a teacher that if you're absent, you have a substitute. As a guidance counselor, you get a substitute.
Yeah, I don't know if there were.
But I would like to know, the mandated kids, they're,
I don't know if there were substitute options or not. I did not look into that, but that would probably
It's out
be
of
good.
compliance.
But I'm not
It's
sure.
out of compliance if you can't.
No, I do not agree we're out of compliance because of the number we have right now.
You're not providing guidance for the children.
I hope we still are, but again, I don't. I hear what you're saying. I just can't say that I feel differently than
Well, I'm just saying, I am
people.
a guidance counselor, and if I don't pick up a child, I'm going against their IEP. So it is true.
Yeah,
you
so
have to pick up the kids.
I would hope that then you would pick up that child. I don't know what else to say.
You're saying that you don't have a guidance counselor, so that's why
Sure.
I have to speak up.
Can I just,
Sure.
comment in? We have Mrs. Holmes, correct?
You know all the names.
We have 2, yeah, I want to just clarify the process that was going on. I don't want to.
Can everybody just?
So I don't want to put the administration on Paul for the direction to speak to me, okay?
Superintendent, is Dr. Beck available and available to student body for counseling? Can he perform that duty?
I just want to reiterate, If it's yes or no question, I'll come back to it, okay? If I could just answer the questions there. We have guidance counselors that are assigned specifically to certain buildings, okay? The process that was referred to is we have another guidance counselor, okay, position. School counselor is really what their title is in terms of being a school counselor that provides services that were presented during our SEL night, during our parent academy for that provides supplemental services as well as additional supports to students when needed as for that. So they have an instructional type of push-in model of providing SEL instruction at the primary school, responsibilities at the elementary school, and also additional small group counseling sessions as well as coverage provided. That's when we would need to compromise with that, okay? Having that said, the staff member whose leave was approved at the elementary school at the public agenda at the last meeting is not related to what was not recommended on the agenda, which was struck through at the last meeting. This was not a substitute. This was the additional staff position that was replacing a school counselor that left at the end of December that had not been filled yet through the process. So it's not necessarily a substitute position. Conversation was had with that, and we will continue to have conversation regarding stuffing that. When students are having issues or with those types of things with regards to counseling sessions and those types of things, we are addressing those things internally. Is it an ideal situation? No. If I'm being complete, it's not ideal, but it's something we're working through for the rest of the year. To answer your question, Dr. Beck is a certified psychologist. He's the Director of Special Services and deals with many issues. He responds to crises on a daily basis, as does the administration.
Are many of the need for guidance counselor IEP related, or is it of the whole spectrum?
Guidance counselors, school counselors provide general ed services. However, that said, they also provide counseling in relation to what's mandated in an IEP. So they do both. They do both general education as well as special education.
Thank you, that's clarifying that for me.
And lastly, to, I think, heighten one of the points that Superintendent made is that I believe this amount of guidance, the amount of guidance counselor we had before the retirement or resignation was only in that situation for the past 2 years, did you tell me? Was it 3 years ago?
We added the fourth counselor to address the additional mental health needs in the district.
Right, so there was a fourth counselor added. So to everyone's point, I'm not dismissing the upset, I understand that. But if 2 years ago, we were operating with 3 counselors and now we're operating with 3 instead of 4 because we brought on a fourth, again, I feel like we'll be fine. But anyway. Yep.
I just wanted to say that I think Mr. Cameron said that it was a decision of the board to remove that counselor from the agenda, adding that counselor on the last agenda. That was a completely unilateral decision by you, as far as I'm concerned. And Amy was the one
Oh, really? How did I make a unilateral decision? Was there a vote on the board?
No, that's what I'm saying. You never voted on this position in any capacity.
Anybody, as you saw tonight and may happen at new business, could have brought up a motion to do whatever they wanted to do. You're well aware of that.
Juvenile and Mrs. It was not exactly a welcomed idea at the last meeting. And so
Well,
I just wanted to.
then perhaps a board member that felt differently could have made a motion to do something different.
Okay, I just wanted to address the fact that it
Of
was not
course.
a board decision.
Yep.
Make motions. Okay, now we know what to do. Thank you.
Did somebody virtual have something?
Amy had her hand up.
Amy?
Yeah, sorry, John, I did want to reiterate that those were actually my exact words, that it was a unilateral decision on your part, as you had said at the last meeting, that you decided to strike through that position that morning after sleeping on it because you did not feel that taxpayers should be paying for the 6 weeks of coverage. Now, when you're referring to having 4 counselors, you struck through the 4th counselor, and now we have a 3rd counselor on leave, so now we're actually down to 2 counselors. When 2 years ago, we added on additional counselor, feeling that we needed additional support in the district, and now instead of having 3, or as you were saying 4, we're down to 2. which is probably one of the most critical times of the year. I can't hear all the participants' names that are speaking, but again, this is the end of the year where there is a lot of activities that are unstructured, and I think this is when the feelings of kids that are kind of feeling left out and maybe have been feeling the pressures of this year, it starts to become more prevalent. And then also with the transition, we know that elementary to middle school is extremely stressful time for our students, and now we're missing that support in the elementary school. Now, then to your comment as to somebody could have made a motion, I would imagine that that person's employment was already rescinded, because that's what the strike through indicated, was that we were no longer offering that position. So I just want to be clear, so during new business, if we were to add that position back on, is that employment contract even still valid? Because I don't think that, if I felt that that was an option last meeting, to say, no, I would like to keep this position on there, that would have been something that was even an option.
That position to that particular person, the superintendent can address whether or not that is still an option.
Well, their employment contract was rescinded, like their offer.
That's why I'm saying the superintendent would have to address that. I did not. I was not involved in that.
The recommendation for personnel comes from the superintendent. The board doesn't have the ability to make a motion to do that. The board can make a motion to revisit, to redo this, or those types of things, but the actual recommendation for the appointment of personnel comes from me.
Right, but my question is, I had made a motion the last meeting to say I would like to keep this recommendation for employment on there. And because we did have a member of the community that was in that position, right? We had a person's name in that position. So my understanding would have been that was a recommendation for employment. So let's say we made a recommendation again to have them back on, to reinstate that position, even for the last 6 weeks of school, is that still an option to send them an employment agreement, to send them a letter of recommendation for them to work for the district?
That I have no idea if that same person is available to take the position. And number two, at this point, even if action was taken tonight, you'd be talking about putting somebody on for, I guess, less than 3 weeks now, whatever is left to school. But I can't answer whether or not that person at that salary gave notice that their work is available to move, and quite frankly, how soon they could even come. So that's why I believe that riding through the rest of the year with the 2 counselors, knowing that we have 3 for the new school year, and making a decision about whether we want to add back the 4th for the new school year is reasonable, even though it's upsetting to some people. I understand.
I just want to be clear that it was not a board decision, that this was something that I did speak out about at the last meeting, and I was upset to see, I wasn't sure why it was struck off, and it was, as you said yourself in your own words, that you weren't sure what to do, and that morning you woke up and you called Dr. Garibay and asked her to strike it off of the agenda. So it was not a board decision, and it was something that, when I realized the situation, I did speak up about last week, and had also emailed you to ask you to reconsider the position.
And as I said, for the short term, I was concerned with bringing on somebody new that would then be a permanent hire before being able to fully discuss and decide on my position on the 4th counselor for next year. Mine? Okay, thank you.
So, in January, I had a large mental health crisis, and if Ms. Hums and Dr. Fasciani weren't there to support me, I don't know where I would be now. So even though that there's still 3 weeks left of school, that's a whole 3 weeks for someone to be going through something. And if they wouldn't have
Yep, and yeah, I will say your email was heartfelt and personal, and I appreciate it, but I hope I answered clearly on my position. Christos?
Is there still 2 guidance counselors?
There's,
Am I correct in saying that there's 2 guidance?
my understanding is that we have 3 guidance counselors employed by the school now.
Okay.
The one that was not replaced would have been replacing our 4th, but one of the 3 is on leave till the end of this year, so that's why until June, is the last day of school the 17th? When's the
21st.
21st. Until the 21st, for the next 3 weeks, there would only be 2 working. Well, I thought one of them at different times covered the two schools, but again,
Right, so the middle school council is now gonna drive in her car and go to the elementary school. I just wanna be clear.
certainly
That's allowed.
if they were needed at a different school, for any issue, yes, they would go. I mean, that's not the plan.
Would it be possible at this time to make a motion to put a vote, to have someone intermittent put in?
To have someone,
Intermittent put in
I-
the last 3 weeks?
I don't know.
Whether they're available or not.
I don't know who that person would be. If
Would be at the discretion of the...
Administratively, provide you with, the board with the information to revisit potentially within, on.
And was it ever looked at, is there the availability, as somebody mentioned, of having, I don't even know if people with those kind of credentials work as substitutes, is the ability to bring in a guidance counselor as a substitute to finish off this year and not as a new hire that then is renewed for next year necessarily?
We have not traditionally done that except for long-term replacements, long-term leave replacements.
Right.
With regards to a certain amount of time out.
But I don't know what you look at when you're trying to find employees. But in this case, if we can also look at the possibility of getting somebody in quick, maybe a motion could be structured where we could try and find a guidance counselor that can come in for the next 3 weeks of school.
I'll provide the board with
And then with the
information.
option for next year as well.
Yeah.
Or however long you would have.
Yeah, I would just want to be clear that we have the programs that were discussed, as we've talked about. You and I had a very open conversation about the programs that we have in place that were put in place with that fourth counselor. You know, they're designed around having that counselor, which is why it's progressed throughout the years. We've presented about the past surveys, the screenings we've done, those things like that. That staff member, that position, that fourth position, is deeply ingrained in the operations of those programs. So having said that, an open program with that staff position is instrumental to the facilitation of those programs because of all the other reasons with regards to the school counselors that are currently in place that cannot facilitate those things. We've enhanced those programs over the years based on the needs of the students. So that's where, so with regards to that, and the reason why we're moving forward, it was kind of a like a coincidental type of thing where it's like, okay, we're gonna move forward with the position that we had in place. I was recommending a replacement for that position. And then there was another leave that took place of a school counselor.
Right.
So I just want to make sure that we're all clear as to what is going to all independently have their roles and responsibilities within their buildings.
And I appreciate your sharing that, and that's why, as I said, both to you when we discussed it and then publicly, I did not make the decision unilaterally that we only need the 3 guidance counselors and that fourth one would not be replaced for next year. I only made the decision that I was not in favor of having on the agenda the appointment of a new full-time employee to get them in here for the last several weeks of school, and then know that then they would roll over into a new contract with the new year. In regards to getting anything done now, hearing the concerns, if I know you said you would provide to the board any information you can regarding getting a substitute counselor in to finish off the year ASAP, based on the resolution, it was in the first half that was already passed tonight, I think that would be the perfect scenario where you might want to use the imminent ability to then hire, but I would like that to be, like I said, first choice to be a substitute counselor that can come in to address the concerns, to make sure there's enough counselors working for the next 3 weeks. Thank you.
Do we need to make a vote for that or not? For that specific
No.
position?
Personnel, and
She,
that need is.
like I said, she has the authority to do it, and if she can find somebody, that's great.
And we won't have to vote on it next meeting?
We do follow up at the subsequent meeting, yes. All right, thank you, and again, I'm sorry for the upset on this particular issue. Anybody else, though? We're still in public comment. Yep.
Mallory Reardon, 165 Laird Road. So I'm gonna move to a different topic, but I wanted to thank Allison and Brenna so much for the Parent Advisory Committee and the work work that they did for months to bring these recommendations to you guys. I can say, as someone that was participating in that committee, that they did a really fair job of bringing, like, taking everybody's thoughts, consolidating them, turning them into cohesive recommendations, and bringing them here. I know a lot of people in the audience spoke about the concerns with the Chromebooks. That was a big concern of mine too. Like my household, we're very limited screen time, no video games Monday through Friday, you know, limited TV time. So I definitely appreciate the fact that other parents feel that way too. And Angelique's, you know, suggestion of like, let's just make a quick move and axe Chromebooks in some places or for some grades and cut time down. But one thing that really stood out to me when we started the committees were the tenets that we went over, and one of them was to prepare children for future life outside of the school system. And that does involve technology. So I don't think it would be a great move to make a blanket decision to just take the Chromebooks away. Definitely look at recommendations. The APA, like you mentioned, like make sure we're within timeframes that are healthy for kids, but you know, books are on Chromebooks now. We don't have to like it, but it is kind of the way of the future, and our children need to be prepared to deal with that when they get to college and they have careers, and we don't want to do them a disadvantage of setting them up like they're not as technologically savvy as their peers from other school systems might be. So just wanted you guys to keep that in mind and make, you know, take time to weigh all the considerations when you're setting those time limits or whatever limits you decide to move forward with on the Chromebooks.
Thank you. All done? Thank you all. Okay, so I'm gonna be working off of 2 sheets. If I miss anything, I'm sure I'll get caught by administration. I had marked up my agenda before we got the revised agenda, so I'll try and make sure I cover everything. Under action items, we now have 1 through 6, I believe, with 1 and 2 not needing any comment, but number 3 needing to have the superintendent do her thing.
Yes, annually, the New Jersey Department of Education requires to do a self-reflection of the prior year's determination of grades under Anti-Bullying Rights Bill of Rights Act. When doing so, the district, are charged with scoring reflection based on documentation of trainings, of programs, approaches and other initiatives, other staff instruction training programs, curriculum instruction on HIV-related information, HIV personnel, and meetings associated with that, school-level HIV incident reporting procedures, investigation procedures, HIV reporting, and the school grades. Each one of those core elements has a maximum amount of score, and each one of those scores can total a maximum of 78 points. I'm very happy to report that out of the 3 schools, each school received a score of a 76 out of a 78 on our self-reflection, our self-assessment. Where we lost 2 points in each school was more operation and structure than actually what we're looking at was under HIV personnel with regards to having 2 meetings per year. Last year, for last year, there was 1 meeting. So we lost 2 points with regards to the 1 meeting. We have since rectified that, and we'll be moving forward with 2 meetings, obviously, which will be reflected in next year's self-reflection of this year. So having said that, I'm very proud of the work that we do and the proactive nature that we try to do things. However, in terms of looking at this, there's always room for improvement, and I want to commend our school counselors and Dr. Beck and the administration who work collaboratively to make sure that we're not only meeting the needs and requirements of HIV laws, but that we are in fact exceeding them. So that concludes this report. I am required, in accordance with the ABRA, or Anti-Bullying Rights Act, and the reporting of such for determining grades under the Anti-Bullying Bill of Rights Act, to open public comment on our self-assessment. Seeing any comments of the self-assessment? Seeing none, I'm going to close public comment on self-assessment. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Number 4 was also on there, and from my end, doesn't need any discussion. Number 6, the superintendent already touched on, and that was setting the CDMS graduation for June 18th. Number 5, yes. Number 5 was also a late addition. We were anxious to move past some controversy and wanted to move forward tonight. I sent to all the board members first thing in the morning, because I only got it late last night, a settlement agreement between the CNTEA and the board. And so hopefully everyone had a chance to read it, but if not, listen closely, because I am going to read it into the record. So before we take a vote on items number 1 through 6 under action items, I'm going to tell you that item number 5 reads as follows. Where the superintendent recommends approval of the following resolution. Whereas the Colts Neck Township Education Association, referred to as the CNTEA, filed an unfair practice charge with the Public Employee Relations Commission of the State of New Jersey, referred to as PERC, P-E-R-C, under docket number CO-2024-140. And whereas Colts Neck Township Board of Education, referred to as the board, and the CNTEA seek to settle the unfair practice charge, and whereas at the November 15th, 2023 board meeting, a board member read a statement expressing his disappointment that the CNTEA endorsed certain candidates for the Board of Education election. In doing so, the board member commented that the CNTEA, quote, has damaged any opportunity to continue to have the type of relationship they should have with the Board of Education, which has direct influence over the terms and conditions of their employment, end of quote. The board would like to clarify that in no uncertain terms, those comments were not intended to be a threat in any way to the association, its officers or members, or their terms and conditions of employment. Nor has the statement been adopted by the board as a whole. The Board of Education looks forward to working together with the CNTEA. The board strives to work in partnership with the union for mutual benefit to provide the best quality public education to the children of Colts Neck. We look forward to a positive working and learning environment and will support the union in every way possible. And whereas the board looks forward to a positive working relationship with CNTEA, and whereas this resolution will be read aloud during the board meeting and needs to be transcribed verbatim into the minutes of the board meeting, along with the roll call of the vote on the resolution, now therefore be it resolved on this 29th day of May 2024 by the Colts Neck Township Board of Education adopting the preamble set forth in this resolution and settling the unfair practice charge with the CNTEA. CNTEA has agreed to dismiss PERC charge number CO-2024-140 with prejudice. Be it further resolved, the minutes of the board meeting and the audio from the board meeting are to be published on the district's website in the same manner as the November 15th, 2023 and January 3rd, 2024 minutes and audio that were published on the district website. And that's it. So with that being read, I'll first ask for a motion and second to move action items 1 through 6.
I'm sorry, Vincent?
Vince and Brenna, I believe.
For a second.
Thank you.
Any questions or comments from the board members? Okay, hearing none, if I can get a roll call on action items 1 through 6, please.
Yes, Mr. Camera?
Yes.
Mrs. Denoya?
Yes.
Mrs. Dillon?
Yes.
Mrs. Dimes?
Yes.
Mr. Rico?
Yes.
Mrs. Ramirez?
Yes.
Mr. Rignetta?
Yes.
Mrs. Volpe?
Yes.
Mr. Walsh?
Yes.
Motion carried.
Thank you very much. Curriculum always was and still is just one item. Would somebody like to move the one item under curriculum?
Move. Kevin?
Second.
Brenna?
You got your second? Any discussion? Could Could I please have a roll call vote on the one item under curriculum?
Yes, Mr. Camera?
Yes.
Mrs. Denoy?
Yes.
Mrs. Dillon?
Yes.
Mrs. Dimes?
Yes.
Mr. Orico?
Yes.
Mrs. Ramirez?
Yes. Excuse me, yes.
Thank you, Mr. Regnetta?
Yes.
Mrs. Volpe?
Yes.
Mr. Walsh?
Yes.
Thank-
Motion passed.
Thank you. Finance, I believe there's 12 items now. And just want to see if there's anything that I wanted to mention. Just that the additional item, if anybody else didn't see the revised, was to move forward with the purchase of a new phone system and IP phone system, which was previously budgeted for and now can be had through a 5-year lease purchase through a national co-op. So would someone like to make a motion on items number 1 through 12, please?
Motion.
Any discussion or comments? Amy?
Yes, I had questions on number 9 and number 10 regarding leaving the shift. I know that we did have some discussion at our board meeting that we had said that we felt that there was further discussions that the pros were not going to outweigh the cons, that it was definitely worth having more discussion. I thought that was something that we had voted on. So I was surprised to see it on the agenda, especially since we did have additional conversations from our business administrator that shared the concerns that there is not a cap, on for next year of what Horizon Blue Cross Blue Shield, and that even though we have a potential savings this year, that we really may be setting ourselves up for a huge deficit in the upcoming years, not knowing what they could raise us to. And then additionally, if there's not a cap, that it could go up so much, or they could choose not to renew us next year, that we have no guarantees, and that once we leave the shift, we're not able to get back in for another couple of years if we're ever allowed back in. So I was just surprised to see this on the agenda, because our last discussions as a whole were that there was going to be further discussion. And this is the next follow-up that I saw, was that it's on the agenda. So I just wanted to know how we got from the conversation as a board of a whole to now it being on the agenda without any further discussion.
Sure. It was recommended to be put on the agenda by a majority of the Finance Committee. The Finance Committee, while doing interviews with several insurance brokers, had new information come up, and if I heard you correctly, I thought you said there may have already been a vote on this, but there was not a vote to my recollection. We did say we would discuss it further, and so two things. Much like the Strauss-Esme NJSBA decision, two of the things that are equal is there is no cap on Horizon and what they might give us next year, which is true, but there's no cap with the shift either. As we saw this year, they gave us a substantial increase, and that can come too. Nobody's given us a second-year cap. More importantly, when Brown and Brown came to the Finance Committee with the intention of just interviewing for the RFP to keep the spot as our insurance broker, they brought us some very good news, and that it was because we did not make a decision, because it was so heavy of a decision, in time to get a renewal date of July 1st. We had to ask and see if Horizon would honor a new renewal, meaning that we would be renewing on September 1st, and if they would hold the same rate. When Brown and Brown went to Horizon and they agreed to do that, and the original savings that Brown and Brown told us we would have was approximately $500,000. When they came to their interview with the Finance Committee, they then told us that it worked out well that by delaying it till September 1st and Horizon still being willing to give us a full year, while it puts us off track from July renewals, it actually upped the savings to $600,000 rather than $500,000, which again is substantial and was important to the Finance Committee. And secondly, Brown and Brown also came in with a timetable to let us know how they would be able to implement the changeover, even though we're so close to the end of the year, and jump right on it. So those are the main factors. If anybody else wants to add anything who was at the Finance Committee, but in my mind, that was the new information that I know persuaded me, and I think a majority of the Finance Committee, to want to have it on the agenda tonight.
So my, just the two, right, so you brought up the policy committee with Strauss Esme and the boards, but there was also notes that were shared from that. So this is the first that I'm hearing about the additional savings of the $100,000. And we did, you're right, we didn't take a vote. We kind of took a straw poll of who would like to have more information about the two companies, leaving the SHIF and changing to Horizon. But the information that you're giving right now is the first I've heard of it. So there was no communication or any information that went out on that. So how is the board as a whole supposed to know that information?
We had what we had. The Finance Committee made the recommendation. A good percentage of every action on every agenda, as you know, is not fully discussed with the whole board. And quite frankly, I'm not even aware of a lot of what the superintendent may put on the agenda until we get the agenda. And that's the way.
When there is committee meetings, you do have an idea of what's going on with the committee, because then there are notes shared after those meetings.
Okay. In this case, all I can tell you is it's on the agenda now. I tried to explain why the Finance Committee went the way they went, and now it's up for a vote.
Okay, so I'm just asking again, that there is better communication between the board members, and that when there are committee meetings, that the information that is communicated in those committee meetings, because as we had discussed that we're a board of the whole, but if there's a committee meeting, that information should then be shared with all of the board members, so that I could have had a better idea of why this was being put on the agenda and not just shown up when our last conversation as the board of the whole was that we were going to discuss it further. So I'm asking again, just for it to be included in conversations of decisions that are being made.
Certainly, I'll try and do better and remind any of the committee chairs to do better, and thank you for your comments. Any other comments on items 1 through 12 under Finance? Hearing none, if I could please get a roll call vote on those 12 items under Finance, please.
Yes, Mr. Cameron.
Yes.
Mrs. Denoy.
Yes.
Mrs. Dillon.
Yes.
Mrs. Dimes.
I'm voting yes to 1 through 7, no to 9 and 10, and then yes to 11.
Thank you. Mr. Arico.
Yes.
Mrs. Ramirez.
Yes.
Mr. Rignano.
Yes.
Mrs. Volpe.
Yes.
Mr. Walsh.
Yes.
Motion did carry.
Thank you. And I think there might have been a number missed when Amy made her vote, but I believe her intention is, and Amy, I want to clarify, to vote on all the items in 1 through 12 except for 9 and 10.
You're muted. You're muted.
You're muted, Amy.
Yes, I apologize. I have both the regular and the revised agenda.
Yep, I'm working off the same thing, so I just wanted to be clear, so
Okay.
you're.
Yes, thank you for the clarification. So yes,
Thank you.
as stated, 1 through 8, no to 9 and 10, and then yes to 11 and 12.
Got it.
Thank you for the clarification.
Yep. Under transportation, we have just the one item. Would someone like to move that?
Motion. Second.
Any discussion on the transportation? Could we get a roll call vote on the one item under transportation, please?
Mr. Cameron.
Yes.
Mrs. Dillon.
Yes.
Mrs. Dillon.
Yes.
Mrs. Dimes.
Yes.
Mr. Arico.
Yes.
Mrs. Ramirez.
Yes.
Mr. Rignano.
Yes.
Mrs. Volpe.
Yes.
Mr. Walsh.
Yes.
The motion carried.
Thank you very much. And while I thought the superintendent set a record even before the revised agenda, even though personnel is generally our largest one, to have 33 items is, well, before the revised. And then to see that you wanted to lock up that record, we have 34 items under personnel. I only want to comment on one before I ask for a motion, and that is that In item number 7, I'd just like to give props to Principal Rigby from the middle school. He's going to volunteer as a chaperone for overnight Hershey music in the parks on May 30th. I believe he's done that before, and I can
And Stokes.
I'm sorry?
And Stokes.
And Stokes. The volunteering is much appreciated, and I just want to say that the guy puts his all into it. I can tell you that it might have been 2 years ago when my daughter had a cheer commitment but wanted to get to Hershey. I ended up driving her out there at night and getting there at midnight, and Dr. Rigby and Mr. Brown, the music teacher, were up at midnight, meeting me in the lobby, welcoming my daughter. They're just great to see that kind of dedication. So from my end, if someone would like to make a motion on items 1 through 34 under personnel.
Motion.
Second.
Any discussion or comments, questions? Hearing none, if we can get a roll call vote on items 1 through 34 under personnel, please.
Mr. Cameron.
Yes.
Mrs. Denoy.
Yes.
Mrs. Dillon.
Yes.
Mrs. Dimes.
I'm sorry.
Mrs. Dimes.
Yes.
Thank you. Mr. Rico.
Yes.
Mrs. Ramirez.
Yes.
Mr. Rignetta.
Due to my employment with the New Jersey Disability Family Leave, I'm going to recuse from 2, 3, and 5, and yes to 1, 4, and 6 to 30.
I'm sorry, can you repeat your second statement?
Recuse 2, 3, and 5, and yes to 1, 4, 6 to 30.
Thank you.
Yep.
Mrs. Volpe.
Yes.
Mr. Walsh.
Yes.
Motion carried.
Thank you very much. New business, anybody have anything
Oh, there's a couple,
for
there's
the
two.
good of the order? Amy, did you see?
Amy and Jessica both have their hand up. Oh, no, Jessica did not. Jessica is stretching. It's Amy who has her hand up. I apologize.
So-
I'd like to add something in new business. I'd like to congratulate Chief Santucci for his service to Coast Lake Township and providing safety and security to our district and kids. He's done an outstanding job as a leader and a police chief. He's retiring July 1st, and I'm sure we're going to have a great replacement.
Thank you. Were you going to try and get him at the?
Actually, he will be recognized at the June 12th meeting. Yes, so he will be here with us. Yes.
Get to do it again, but thank you. I feel the same way. And I think Amy had something for new business?
Yes, John, thank you. As per your suggestion, I would like to make a motion to reinstate the position that was struck on the revised agenda on May 7th, 2024, personnel item number 8, which is for the school counselor/district.
Second.
We even did that.
Yeah, so I don't know that the superintendent said that that could be handled that way. We did give, well, I won't even say give direction. The superintendent offered to use her imminent qualifications to be able to fill the position if possible. And we went through that. Is it appropriate versus you, for the board member to make a motion tonight to say that I assume maybe means that the same person that was on the agenda to come on now, be put on now, what, if she's available? Was it a she?
So it's reinstate position that was struck through on the May 7th agenda for the school district counselor that was on the agenda, and as Dr. Garibay had explained, the reason why that counselor was added on originally was for the needs of the district. So, and that they're heavily ingrained, I listened to her very carefully say that they are heavily ingrained in the programs that we have set forth for our students, and it seems extremely detrimental to be taking that away, and I don't think that there was a discussion with those that are running the district or that are involved with the business of the district, or even those that are involved, before removing that position. And I understand that you're concerned about the taxpayers of the school, but I'm concerned about the students of our district. That is my main focus. So that is why I'm asking to have a motion, as you had suggested, John, that if I feel that strongly that a position needs to be put back on that was taken off, that I'm asking for a motion to replace that position, to put that back on.
I'm not saying you can't, but I thought I heard the superintendent say that a new hire like that could only be.
It has to be my recommendation.
Right.
is going forward. But I will certainly update the board in a timely manner as to where we are in that process. So I don't know if you would like to formally withdraw your motion, if you'd like to do that.
I'm confused as to how it's
So-
removed, but can I make a motion for you to make a recommendation for that position to be reinstated?
No. No. But I hear you, and I think that we've, yeah.
But the eminent, your ability, that is not going to be to replace the school district counselor, it is just for.
So my responsibility is to staff the district accordingly to the needs of the students in the district, right? And as with, it is not the preferred practice of the administration to do retroactive hiring. You know, we want to make sure that we're board approving staff before they start. There are times, or even with club appointments or things like that, right? With chaperones, we've had to retroactively approve, it's already happened. I still have the ability as a superintendent to authorize employment, offer an employment, and have a person start and then retroactively approve them. That is within my ability as a superintendent to do that, to meet the needs of the district in an imminent manner for this. This is a different kind of situation where a recommendation to go forward with a replacement or a substitute or things like that are two different conversations that are going on right now. So the recommendation for a replacement for the open position for the school counselor will come, you know, in time as those discussions happen more with the board, okay? What we're looking to do now is different, which is put someone in place as a type of substitute for a counselor at elementary school. So it's different. So I think there's two different topics going on that are overlapping, if that makes sense. Either way, the recommendation for personnel has to come from me. So having said that and hearing what the board said about my imminent ability, I will be working tomorrow to do that, to secure and provide information with the board on how that
Yeah,
will work.
and for sure, and I'll take the blame for it, the imminent concern of the parents we heard from tonight and board members that we heard from tonight is to have a counselor in place to counsel children in need for the remainder of this year. The ability to hopefully get a substitute, I just use that, or temporary person in is much more likely than to re-interview, have the superintendent go through and make a recommendation that would most likely make sense to do for the new school year. But, so, that's where we're at, and did you get enough from the superintendent that you're comfortable to withdraw your motion, or what do you want to do?
Yes, if that's the best way to withdraw the motion.
Thank you very much.
Noted.
Anybody else? Allison?
The Coltec Community Band is performing at the Barn in Tinton Falls on June 7th at, I believe, 7:30 p.m. I can send you a flyer if you want to send it out to the community, just so people have it. It'll be a really nice evening of music. It's a bunch of wonderful musicians, and then we also do the 4th of July fireworks, which are on the 3rd here. So just something for people to enjoy.
Thank you for that information. Anybody else? New business? From my end, I just want to then say quickly that I do believe, I want to thank again the parents and the board members and the administration involved in the PAC meetings and thank them for the recommendations. But I do not believe it's rash or irresponsible to make a little stronger recommendation than what was already made, and that is that we immediately have the administration not wait for more PAC meetings, but to actually research and look at the, what was everybody calling it, APA, the American Pediatric Association, and deal with the screen time. The idea, I mean, we've supported reported things like wait till 8 for smart cell phone use. The amount of time kids spend on screens is, I think, well recognized as an issue. I agree with Mallory. The technology has changed. I in no means want to say, oh, it should go back the way it was decades ago. But at this point in time, for the school district to be using up, if we are, I'm not saying we are, but that's what we want to check. If the APA recommends no more than, I'm just throwing out numbers. I don't know that they do this. But if they recommend no more than 4 hours a day for a kid to be on a screen, whether it's their phone, the Chromebook, an iPad that the younger kids, I guess, use here, then we should be limiting the time in school to some percentage of that. Because otherwise, we're obviously putting kids in what has been well recognized by the APA as bad for them, as good as it might be and as much as they might be need to be prepared. At certain young ages, I would imagine that the recommendation is for less screen time, and kids are having issues focusing and other issues based on screen time. APA has recognized it, and I believe at a minimum, we should have our administration looking at how much time we spend now and making a recommendation that we don't exceed, I don't know the right percentage, but some percentage of what the APA recommends, so that we're not keeping kids on Chromebooks too much at school.
Sure, we can, right, if I may. One of the things that is apparent when we're looking at those things is that, yes, we are cognizant of screen time and the resources. There's another part of that, which is the availability of the resources and what we want to accomplish with our students, okay? So we've talked a lot about best practices with screen time. We've also talked about differentiation, being able to get students at their right levels, adjusting instruction to meet individual needs. It's something we pride our district on. The resources that appear in text don't have the ability to do that to the level of detail that we do. So to change that, you are changing the instructional practices of the district, which could ultimately impact the results we get from students. So I just want to make it clear that when I make a recommendation and we go through a process to weed out the best resources because we feel it meets the needs of our students in the best possible way, in the way that we want to do it, we look at it through a way of saying what Mary Jane might need might be completely different from what Richard is going to need, and a textbook won't do that. Online resources will do that. They will differentiate the same content of a text at the right reading level of where it's delivered. They will stress vocabulary on the just right levels of where students are being met. They were also able to progress monitor. So in terms of this, I understand and I completely hear both sides of that balance of it. I understand the concept of preparing people for the future. I just want us to understand that if we look forward and we look at those types of things, there's a statement or an assumption being made that it will be better instruction.
Yeah.
And I don't know that I can substantiate that opinion at this time.
And I certainly can't. But I think it has to be looked at because, to your really good points, if a particular student needs a particular more time on the screen for testing and the more individualized aspects of it and how it works, then maybe that student should be more limited in a different classroom. All I'm saying is I hear what you're saying, but to trade off, if the situation was that the best educational resource for this child is to have more screen time than maybe another child, if that amount of time is still exceeding, forget about a percentage, if it's exceeding what the APA says a kid should be on every day, I don't think it's worth it.
So the research part of it, and Jessica had her hand up as well, so I want to
Yeah.
make sure you saw that. The other part of that is too, is that to what I was speaking with the constituent that was there, the history of the running Chromebook, that takes time to compile. So respectfully, on behalf of the administration and staff, I'm asking for that time to compile data and not make a decision based on, we hear the concerns, we've heard it, the recommendations are there. We've heard it, we're trying to work individually with parents who have had concern. Respectfully, parents that have spoken during PAC that brought the concern to the PAC appropriately, that we actually brought back to teachers, brought back to the administration, and were able to share the conversations with them. I understand philosophically how people may agree or disagree with that component of it. But this type of decision is a decision that has significant impact upon the instructional practices of the district that I am not confident in making any recommendation to change anything other than us looking at researching and compiling that time. And I'm asking respectfully for that time to do so.
And I agree 100%, with all due respect to the parents that have been involved. That's why I don't believe more, not that they shouldn't have parent advisory committees for whatever issues, but more discussion from the parents about wanting to just limit time, I don't think is as fruitful. And what I did not hear in the recommendation, it would not be as fruitful as the administration, you, being led by you, research the aspect, like you said, specifically of the amount of screen time based on the APA. And that's what I'm asking for, support.
Oh, Jessica. I'm sorry, Jessica.
Yes.
Yes. No, it's okay. I also wanted to side note, Amy, I didn't know I could raise my hand until I saw you click the little thing, so thank you for that. If I may interject, just because I foresee this coming down the policy committee's pipeline. And so, just something that I've looked into this, especially after reading the notes on the Parent Academy, talking to my neighbors even. And I know I've shared with some board members that my sister even has concerns when she moved her kids, and she went from homeschooling back to traditional public school where she lives now, and she was like completely surprised that her kids are on the Chromebooks nonstop, is how she phrased it. They're really not, but in my research, there is, and this is regardless of really who you look at, whether it's the American Academy of Pediatrics, the AAP, the World Health Organization, even Common Sense Media, the National Institution for Health and Care Excellence, so NICE, even the Canadian Pediatric Society, there's no actual educational guidance. A lot of the guidance that they provide, and I will use that word guidance or recommendation, is on non-educational time, which makes it, I imagine, very tricky for educators to find out how much educational screen time children should be having. Now, within their recommendations, they do recommend that even the screen time that they're having that's non-educational is high quality / educational, but it's not, there really is no actual guidelines for educational use. So I think this is a bigger conversation that administration needs to look into. And as Mary Jane has pointed out, that there's actual screen time that the kids are spending, and then there's what the parents have access to see. So I think we need to maybe have a discussion about how much actual time the children are spending on it, because how can we make a recommendation when we aren't exactly clear of how much time they are? But this is something that I think is going to take time to research and to really look into further. That this is something that we can just, make something quickly policy-wise. And that's, why I'm commenting on this, because again, as policy chair, I do foresee this, coming down into our committee. And so I just want to make that clear and kind of put that opinion on that.
Thank you. Appreciate that, and happy with the superintendent's response to do that research, both on how much time and I know it's a lot of work, but how much time our kids are spending on the Chromebook for real, and what those recommendations are. Because again, my understanding of the APA and those other recommendations, while they may not address educational screen time specifically, what they're talking about is screen time. So for us to be adding on, we're obviously going to be a part of it in the school, and I don't want to be exceeding what they recommend or even doing the 100% of what they recommend, knowing that kids are going to spend additional screen time as well, so if it's damaging. So thank you. Brenna?
I just wanted to say, because weight until late was thrown out there, completely different from what we're talking about with instructional screen time, but the pledge has been going around, and actually in our district, me as a parent, I was helping get the word out on that, and kindergarten and second grade, Conover Primary is officially on the Wait Until Late website as an active pledge, so I encourage anyone who's interested to sign up on the pledge.
Thank you.
Some more action there, but again, that's different from instructional screen time usage. And I really appreciate Jessica's point, clarifying the research and how it is mostly directed towards, recreational screen time.
Thank you. Anybody else? All right, then I think we stay in session for Dr. Tehan.
Yes, now if you want to take a recess for a minute.
Yeah.
Okay.
As the superintendent suggested, we'll just recess the meeting for a couple of minutes so that then the board, and it's going to be open and public. If anybody wants to stay and listen to Dr. Tehan talk about the evaluation of the superintendent, you're more than welcome.
This is not executive.
Correct.
Nice.
Christos, good seeing you, dude. Thanks for
Hi,
the comment.
Christos. Nice to see you. Like 5 minutes. I think they're just having to kind of clear out and do it. Dr. Tian did say it's not that long. Like, there's information to go share. Here's that.
Do you happen to have a card?
I don't, but I'm gonna give you my number. I'm gonna give you everything like right here. I don't have one on me.
In case I use the wrong one.
.org. Okay, can you see that?
Yep.
Coltsneckschools.org. There you go.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
You're the
There you go.
best.
Here. I'll be at their really big shoe in the morning, and then I'll be there.
There's something on the weekend, you know?
Angelique, did you see the spread Kevin had set up for your birthday?
I guess we're not going to honeymoon.
It's crazy. They, I don't know if I told you, I'm sure I told you originally, my surgery was scheduled for the 11th.
Oh, no, no, no.
Oh, well, it was, and then, wow.
Oh.
And then the live streaming can stay on.
Yeah, it stays on.
Yeah, but they moved it to the 13th, just a scheduling thing. And I'll probably have to miss the graduation, but now I'm hopeful I can make this June 12th meeting, but I don't know if the night before they're gonna have me in already. June 12th seemed fun, like, if I can't miss the graduation, I'd like to see the recognition. To help roll through the, thing, yeah. I don't think I answered, well, I forget now, because she also did for the, student liaison thing, I know we pushed, not pushed it off, but like said thank you and pushed it to Angelique. I'm double checking.
Turkey roll for dinner. Her birthday dinner.
So, and then on the 12th, and the 26th, we'll do annual contracts or annual appointments, which are like bids. So Vince will put together a proposal. And then we have just the ones that aren't in collectively, they are in.
Yeah, good. Sounds like a plan. Dr. Tehan, I hope it goes without saying, there's food over there, so please help yourself. It's been a long night. Hey, babe. Okay.
wasn't you with that, that's over your mouth.
It is. Okay, good. So glad you took it. I would've panicked, I would've just walked out.
No, because that's a pointer. And
You
so when
okay?
you're clicking,
You're
actually, you have to be over the.
Yeah, I don't know how much I've told, yeah, I thought I told her that, so yeah, I have like some pretty bad,
Very.
cancer.
Oh my God.
Oh, I thought, no, I told, maybe, you know what, you had to cut out for the
That's the way to do
airport.
it.
At the last meeting, I made sure to tell everybody,
Oh my God.
and I'm sorry,
I thought you looked at it, I thought you were losing weight or something.
I've lost like 25 pounds over the past week. Anyway, long story short, on June 13th, I'm going in for like major surgery, so it's pain. We're still live shooting, so.
Where the markers are, you
Yep.
can, this was the settlement right there.
I should have offered it to you.
No, I usually bring two and I only brought one in.
How's about it? Okay, he went to pick up and everything went over? Okay, good.
Let me know, I'll join you. I can never do that work all day and then leave Sunday.
Oh, no way. I don't blame you.
Oh. We were watching the football the other night.
Oh, yeah.
It was like.
Oh, look at that, in for it.
I told her, I'm like, is he not here with us? So I put it on and we were all watching GME coming
Oh,
in
yeah.
past.
Oh,
It
awesome.
was really nice.
Oh, great.
And then one was going out, but
Oh, yeah, yeah. That's cool.
it was really nice.
Yeah. Did you watch, I guess you watched the first set when it was daylight out?
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah, we shut it off before the night.
Okay, yeah.
You know, that's an appropriate
Awesome.
font.
Yeah, I've had it.
That's an appropriate font.
There's one that font is so small I can't read it.
Yeah.
We're scanning
saw
something.
Yeah.
I guess I'll start, right?
Yeah,
Good.
please.
Jessica, you ready to start? Ready to start?
We are ready.
Jessica and Amy are back. Do you want to start or Zoom?
So, in your folder, just so you know, I'm gonna point this out first before we even start. This paper on the front left side are your instructions on how to log in. This is what everyone has the problem with, okay? So, there's two parts to this. The top part is for the CSA evaluation, also known as, can you hear me?
Can you guys hear? Yes?
Okay. The top part is for the CSA evaluation, also known as superintendent evaluation. The bottom part is if the board is deciding to do a self-evaluation, that's what that is instruction for. So for this, what we're talking about tonight, you're only paying attention to the top part of this, okay? This book on the left, besides the handouts, okay, of the presentation, this book, in the little booklet on the back, is really helpful. Most questions that you're gonna have are gonna be found in there. And there's really nice samples in there as well that you can look at when, you know, you're seeing something. The other part of this is normally, as a district, you have two options. One, after everyone is finished, all of the information that was input by you can be compiled either by the board president or the designee or myself. Many districts just ask me to do it because it's easier. And then normally what would happen is if I'm doing it, I send it to the board president unless the board So, John, I don't know if you're gonna be spearheading it, I should be sending it to you, or it should be somebody else.
Everybody else took a step back. No, Allison volunteered to do it.
Oh, okay, so I'm sending
She has
it-
much more
okay.
experience, and I appreciate that. Thank you.
Okay, so when I send it to you, I send you multiple files. One is the compilation of everyone from the board that is not conflicted. And then I send you the actual final, it's a blank Word document of the actual evaluation, where you're gonna kind of copy and paste from the PDF of the compilation into that. Okay, and then there's some helpful information as well with that. So you'll get like, I think it's 5 different files instead.
Okay.
So if you end up having any questions, just reach out to me and I'll give you some
You
direction.
and me, we're gonna be
There you
best.
go. You and everybody else across the.
And in all seriousness, thanks, Allison, for stepping up for that.
Right.
Okay, so just as a reminder, if you have a relative that works in the district and you're conflicted, you cannot take part of the superintendent evaluation. I don't believe anyone is conflicted in this district, so that doesn't apply to you. But if your circumstances change moving forward, make sure you let the BA or your board attorney know so they can let me know, and then we can mark you as conflicted. So this is your opportunity as a board to really provide oversight and appraisal of the superintendent. It's the only person in the district that you are allowed to assess. There's no one else in this district, including the BA, even though the BA sits here with you all the time. You do not evaluate him or anybody else in the district, only the superintendent. So you have a legal guideline to say that you have to do this. So it's not like, I don't really want to do this. You're required as a board to do this, okay? You have to do an evaluation at least once a year. I don't know of any district that does it more than once a year. More power to them if they do, but you are required to do it once a year, and it has to be finished by July 1. So that means that each board member has to input all their stuff, the superintendent has to input her stuff, and then it has to be compiled. You guys have to meet as a board to decide, what should be in that final document, and then you have to meet with the superintendent to go over it with her, and the board president and the superintendent have to sign off on it. That all has to occur by July 1. So you have a very tight time frame, and more power to you since you're going to be the one that's spearheading it. Getting all the board members to actually do it is difficult, and I do try to monitor it. And so if somebody tells me you're going to have a deadline of say next Friday, I will look and see where you're at, and then I'll send you like an update and say, so far you're missing 3 people, and these are the 3 that are missing. So that'll be kind of fall on your shoulders to kind of tell whoever hasn't done it, you need to do it. Okay. So the evaluation is actually broken into 2 parts. The top part, for those that have never done this before, the top part is the district goals. The bottom part of it are the standards. There's 6 standards, and we're going to go over them, but there's 6 standards that the superintendent is also evaluated. The process is that the superintendent will go in first. She will do her part. Once she finishes it, there's a 40-hour hold. So when you hit submit, if you want me to override that, just simply say, Tim, I am good to go. Override it. I can override it, and then it will release it to the board. If you want that 48-hour wait window where you can think about it and make any changes, you just leave it, and it will automatically release after 48 hours. Once it releases, all the board members get an email that says, superintendent's done, you can start. And it comes from me, but it's actually auto-generated, just with my name on it. But know that that's like, you need to kick in and start doing it, okay? It is a CUSAC requirement as well. It's actually worth 13 points, so that's pretty significant. Once again, stressing, finish by July 1. If you don't, you lose those 13 points, okay? The evaluation tool that you're going to be working within, the New Jersey School Board's evaluation tool, is optional. It's not a requirement that you use this tool. You can use another tool. You can use a Google Doc, whatever. However, the parts that are in this, which are the district goals and the 6 standards, is the requirement. And this was actually created, this tool was actually created in combination with New Jersey School Boards and New Jersey Association of School Administrators, NJASA, which is the superintendent group. So it's optional, but by all means, many districts use it. I'm not even going to worry about this because I know we already have it. I know you already know how to do the census update, so we're going to skip that. In your packet, you also have a sample calendar. We're way past this, but this will be helpful for you for next year, okay? So this calendar, you really want to process, and then this way you're not feeling like crunch. Also keep in mind that if you're going to one board meeting a month, you really need to start in March. Otherwise, you're gonna have to have special meetings just to be able to get this done, okay? So that's a handy sample. Notice it's a sample. You have to tailor it to your district. Evaluation process just gives you an idea that everything is interconnected, but this is the process that you're gonna go through. You're gonna create your district goals, the CSA evaluation. There's a pre-conference, which is not mandatory, but the superintendent finishes her part, then the non-conflicted board members do their part. Then you have to have the board come together and discuss it and decide on what is actually going to be included within that final document. And the superintendent has to be riced for that, but she does not attend it. Then the second time, you invite the superintendent, she's riced again, and you all come together. It's at that point where she's presented, it actually should be presented at least 48 hours ahead of time, more is nicer, to the superintendent. She gets the whole thing, she has an opportunity to read through it, and then you guys as a whole group can come together. But remember, you have to rice her twice. One time without her present, one time with her present, okay? Once again, pre-evaluation is optional. I know, I always think of the pre-evaluation as some districts will do real formalized, but most districts, the superintendent's constantly updating the board anyway, so your pre-conference is kind of happening all the time. But if you wanted to formalize it, once again, that ship has sailed. But if you were going to do a pre-conference, you know, that's something you could plan when you're doing your sample calendar. Okay, so the district goal section is going to look like this. So when the superintendent goes in, she's going to write whatever the goal is. She's going to put a comment in there about the goal, and then she's going to mark herself as whether she thinks she's achieved it, satisfactory progress, or little or no progress is made. Just because if she writes little or no progress made, that doesn't mean that she gets a poor mark in that. Because, once again, she's communicating the progress during the year of these goals. And there may have been circumstances that happened within the district that you're all very well aware of and know that there was a reason why she couldn't get to that goal. As long as it's legit and you understand it, then she still might score really well on this standard because she did all the possible work that she could for that particular goal. So you have to take that into consideration. That's the superintendent's part. You as an individual board member will do the same thing. So the reason why the superintendent goes first is because when you go in, you actually read what she's written. And that'll give you some insight into the work that she's done. Because once again, you're not here every day. She is. So she gives you updates. But this is her opportunity to kind of shine the spotlight on it and also remind you of something that she might have shared with you back in November that we've all forgotten about, that she remembers. So you as the board member, as an individual board member, you will go in and you will fill in the goal. You may decide to put a comment, and you will give her a rating as well. You as an individual board member do not see what any other board member has put in. The only thing you're going to see is the superintendent's, and that's it. Okay? And then you'll see your own. You won't see what everyone else does until that compilation is done and sent to the designee, who then shares it with you when you all come together. Okay? So district goals will look like that. When it gets compiled, it breaks it down like this. So you'll see a nice little chart that comes with it that will say what the superintendent said. Superintendent said that she achieved that, whatever the standard was. 7 board members also marked her as achieved. 1 said satisfactory, 1 said a little or no progress. Okay, so that gives a breakdown of that 9-member board. Any comments are also then shown for that particular standard, along with the superintendent's comments. This is from the compilation. So when you guys are creating that final summative evaluation, this is what you're pulling from. You're going to pull certain comments from here that are going to support the rating that you're giving. The rating that you're giving is going to be based upon where the majority is falling. Okay? So you have a minority opinion, you have a majority opinion. It's really what the majority is saying. So if 7 people have said that she's achieved it, and 2 said these 2 marks, the actual score will be achieved. Okay? Any comments that are made to support these 2 do not get included in the final evaluation. Only ones that support the achieved get included in that. because that's the final evaluation document. However, when you're meeting with the superintendent to do that summative evaluation meeting, that's when that minority opinion can be shared with her verbally. So somebody could say, well, just so you know, I did give you little or no progress. I know everyone else said achieve, but this is why. Just so she's aware of the reason why. You can share it, but you don't have to share it either. You put it in there, and that's fine. But this just gives you an idea how it's broken down. The standards, like I said, there's the ISLIC standards or leadership standards. There's 6 of them. These are the 6 different areas. And within the evaluation, you'll see all 6 of them are broken down. When you see them, this is what they're going to look like. And it looks like a lot of information, but it's really not. The standard is right there at the top. So this is standard 1. You'll see the same thing for all 6 standards. It tells you what the standard name is. It gives you the rating scale. So in other words, when you're scoring, this is what you're going to be choosing as a score. These are the resources to consider. Evidence links that are provided by the superintendent. And I know her and I had a discussion before, and she has a very similar method of how I did it. The system will only allow you to put in 1 link per evidence, but she might have 16 different pieces of evidence. Chances are she's going to give you a link to probably a Google Doc, I'm assuming, or a PDF. And when you click on that, it'll bring you to that actual document, which will have more that are there. That's how I did it too, and my board liked it that way. And then as you go down, you have the indicators that are down there, how she's being rated, and then you have the overall performance on the standard. So for that particular standard, it was proficient. This is the breakdown of a compilation for, once again, all 9 board members. So this is standard 2, and it's all the subcategories within standard 2. You see all the different ratings within this for each one, and then it gives you the overall rating of how the board decided to rate the superintendent on this. Looking at this, you see that most of them are falling in, 5 of them are falling in the proficient range. Her score on this one, if this was her evaluation, would be a 5. It would be a proficient on this particular standard, okay? Doesn't mean that these people didn't matter, the exemplary or the areas for growth. They're just not the majority where the majority is falling. Once again, it's majority opinion. Everything goes in the annual report that will support it. I'm going to skip that one. The annual report looks like this. So the compilation is the one piece, which is what everyone puts in. The annual report is what you're picking from that compilation to put into it, this final document. And so she gets 1 document. And so this will break it down, progress towards district goals, district goal 1, 2, 3, however many you have, and you will mark them, whatever it might be. And then the same thing with the leadership standards, there's 6 of them. You'll mark it within this, so it's set up exactly the same as the actual compilation. So it's the same number and the same structure, it's just a matter of what you're going to be picking from the one to the other. When you get to this is the overall strength and growth area. You're not limited to 1. You can check as many as you want. So for example, let's say she's really strong in standards 1, 2, and 3. Well, up here, overall strength, you're going to pick 1, 2, and 3. That's okay. You might even pick all 6 of them. Maybe you only pick 5. That's, depending on where everything goes, based upon the information that you got from the compilation. Down here, of the 6 standards, which areas require professional growth improvement? Once again, you can choose 0 all the way up to all of them, okay? So, and then you should be putting in supporting remarks, once again, from that compilation. You're picking from that things that are going to support why you gave her what you gave her in that area. So the next steps, like I said, would be either, Allison, in this case, you could go in and compile it. You're probably going to say no, which is fine. I will compile it. It takes me a short amount of time to do it. And then, once again, rice notice once, rice notice twice, and then you actually meet with the superintendent to review it. That's once again telling you rice notice. Just make sure your board agenda actually has it, that in your executive session lists superintendent evaluation, because when QSAC comes in, that's one of the things they look for. Yep.
How do we rice notice the superintendent?
That goes to
BA
the
does.
business administrator?
Okay, so
Yes.
I would give you the heads up.
Nope, we
or-
haven't. Nope. It'll be on the 12th and the
Yes.
26th.
Okay.
So you already got the
that's
dates.
Just
so
done.
just leave it
Standard
there.
practice,
Standard
yep.
practice.
Okay.
Which is nice, so if you're saying it's the 12th and the 26th, you now have your timeline too.
Right.
Yes.
So you realize that she's gonna finish hers really quick. That means you're gonna need to finish yours by the 11th night at the very latest, so I can get the compilation to you.
I was shooting for the 10th, actually.
So that's up to you guys. As a board, decide what the date is, and then you let me know what that date is,
Okay.
and then I'll keep checking. If they finish it before that date, I will compile it and send it to you.
Okay, cool.
Okay, so that'll give you that little more of a window. So once again, this is up to you guys, how you want to do it as a board. On some boards will say, okay, the designee or the board president, whoever's doing it, might start to fill in that final assessment document. They'll start pulling in information from the compilation, then come to the group and share both of them. So everyone sees it, and then you can always throw it up on a screen like this and start to manipulate it. Other boards don't like to do that. They like to come in, hand out the compilation to everyone, have that discussion, take their time, and then start to put it in. So it's just, there's not a right or wrong, it's just what the preference is. Okay? Recommendation is that when I send you the file, it's password protected. So you're probably going to want to print it out for the members of the board. If you need to come to the district to get it printed out, I would strongly suggest you stand there when they print it out so that no one gets it. If it's a paper copy, once it's over, please collect all those and have them shredded.
Okay.
Okay, because it is personnel information and it shouldn't be shared with anyone. Okay? When you're done, the superintendent keeps one copy. After it's signed, she would keep a copy. The board actually does not keep a copy. Your best bet is to give it to the board attorney, which is funny because I never knew that, and all those years, and I never even knew where that other copy went. I always thought it went in my personnel file. It actually does not and should not go in your personnel file because you supervise everybody in the district, so no one should be able to go in your personnel file and see that. So it really should go to your board attorney. And it's really an ongoing thing. Like I said, the superintendent will keep you updated throughout the process, throughout the year, and so you're always getting information. So, don't forget what she tells you as the year goes on, because that stuff will come back for the evaluation plan. And these are linked, so I can send this to you, it's okay. Do you have any questions? And like I said, all of you might end up running into an issue. Some people forget their username and password. A lot of times you can just simply email call center and say, I forgot my username and password. You can actually try to recover it right on the site, but if for some reason it doesn't work, just email call center. But if you don't, you email me, that's fine. I will email the call center and CC you on that email, and then the call center will usually say, here's your username and try this password. So, either way you'll get to it. I just did that today with somebody in another district. So.
And I don't want to hold up any more time, but for the past couple of weeks, I've had a section of that in my Friday update. The first whole section has been about this. The rice notices I emailed John and Jessica about, copying Vince on it to kind of make sure, getting ready for it. The links for the largest one, a lot of it is reflected in the agenda recommendations that have been gone over through the year. The Friday updates will be links. I'm trying to minimize the amount of reading and different things we have. But please, if you have any questions on the goals, reach out to me. If there's a clarification, I'd rather be able to ask you something, or is this because it's in I don't want to go day by day and say, here's the evidence kind of thing. It's in the totality, and I'll get the one example is student achievement. There's a link in there, but there's board agendas, there's goals, there's all those kinds of things, and I didn't want to have you go back through every piece of minutia, especially with respect to 4 board members that only came on in January. So I want to be able, it's a totality of things. So if you have questions, ask. Please don't hesitate to ask.
It's important too, for board members that just joined, you can't include or you can't consider a grading based upon things that you think you knew before you became a board member. It's from the time you became a board member forward. Now, the superintendent will share information with you within the evaluation, and that's fine to consider that. But don't take into consideration things that you knew or thought you knew before you became a board member. So because you came to a board meeting and you saw what went on, doesn't necessarily mean you, as you now know as a board member, you know a lot more information than the public does, which is the way it's supposed to be. So evaluate the superintendent based upon what you
So one thing is about with regard to the district goals years ago, in terms of, like, there was a little bit of a confusion about, the district goals are approved every year, usually sometime in the fall. Those are the goals, so it's kind of like, that's what I've been working towards, right, in terms of providing that evidence and showing that. So we can talk about it when it comes time for this board to set this year's goals for next year for 24, 25, but those are the goals. So there's sometimes board members that'll come in January and be like, well, I don't like that goal, I didn't want that goal. That necessarily is inconsequential to the conversation of the evaluation, because that's the goal I was working towards and I'm providing evidence on. So we can talk about next year's goals with, as we work as a board to set district goals collectively. The other thing I also help the board with regards to the professional standards, responsibilities. I linked in to help support the conversation. I also provided staff with an opportunity to do an anonymous voluntary survey on their observations and perceptions of the professional responsibilities. The responses to that is linked in. I linked that in last week in my Friday update, and that will also be included in the evidence, but you already have it. So, with regards to just another piece of information and insight for that perspective. So I'm trying to get whatever else you feel that you need.
That's all really I have. I tried to summarize it really quick, but just realize that, like I said, if you run into problems throughout
Jessica has her
the
hand raised.
process, just reach out to me. I have no problem trying to walk you through any of it.
Jessica has her hand raised. Jessica has a question. You're on mute, Jessica, sorry. Go ahead.
Not so much a question, but just as a heads up, because I know this was helpful last year. I don't recall who it was, but one of the board members last year that had been on the board prior to my time had told us during this training that this evaluative process takes a long time. So just as a heads up, and I really appreciated that, because I remember thinking I could just sit down and quickly go through it. So for the new board members, there's a lot of reading to do when you're going through each area of evaluation. And so just please make sure that you set that time aside, because it is more than what I know I even bargained for even after someone told me that last year. So just wanted to throw that out there for those new board members.
Yeah, to add, to piggyback, Jessica, I would expect at least an hour and a half to 2 hours to complete.
Easily.
It doesn't look like a lot, but
It probably took me about 2 hours last year.
Yep. And it's always best to do it in one sitting.
Yeah.
Because then everything's fresh in your mind, but some people don't have that kind of attention span, so know yourself.
Or tackle one.
Right, you can
Right?
do one standard at a time. Yep.
Just needs to be done by the 10th
There you go.
of June.
The June 10th.
Yeah, it's coming up, just an FYI.
It's only like 2 weeks.
But that's only after a superintendent completes theirs.
Yep,
My
and mine,
guess is-
I'm finalizing it. I was talking with, that I'll be done with all of my stuff. You have the majority of the information already that's going to be input, so you can start reviewing it, linked in the Friday updates, but my part will be completely input by the end of the week.
So by the end of the week, we're gonna override the 45 to 48 hours?
Yeah, I'll let you know. No, I'm just,
Okay.
yes, you can go, you'll be able to go as soon as it's
So,
done.
because what happens is when she submits it,
Mhm.
it also gives me an email, auto sends me an email and says, superintendent has done it, and then I know that she started it, now I know that it'll override the 48 hours,
Yes.
I'll go in and override it, and then, usually it's 20 minutes later, it'll send an automatic email to all the board members and say, the superintendent's finished, so figure by the end of this week, you will be getting a notification.
Great.
So, and then your time clock of June 10th clicks, tick, 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 okay? But it's really important to finish it on time. Can't stress that one enough.
And I will tell you that this is, I don't want to take up any more time or waste any more hours of Angelique's birthdays either. That this is, to me, it's the most important thing, one of the most important things that the board does, because it's a reflection of my performance in terms of the operations of the district. So it means a lot.
Thank you. That's great, thanks.
Thank you.
And again, sorry about the long meeting, that didn't anticipate that long.
Motion to adjourn.
Was this just for me, back to you? Paper proofs? Yeah, as I thought. Other board members don't have it, right? No. That's back to you. And Vince? These
Make a
are all
motion to adjourn.
back to you. Yep. Okay, if everybody's, Oh, do you have
No,
one
you
too?
can all
No,
send back. I
send
didn't
those
know you guys
back,
asked them.
please.
Those are just the HIB,
It was
that's the
just for
self-report.
your
I can take
awareness
those back.
when they
Yep.
go back. Thank you.
Yep, yep, I can take the HIB, self-report back. Thank you.
And we could do this when we adjourn. Would anyone like to make a motion to adjourn?
Motion.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Meeting adjourned.
Hey, Jay?
Good night.
Bye, good night.
Bye.
Did they come from the other end of the table too?
Yes, I know. Thank you. I didn't actually realize you guys all had individual copies of them. I thought nobody wanted to attach it. Thank you.
I'll see you later.
All right, did we cut the live stream?
I've just. Okay.
John's signature?
Yes.
Yeah.
I have to go through mine and mine.
Went through them all. I just want to make sure we're off live
Let me
stream.
just say the.
Phyllis started freaking out because when I was talking to you and